Chapter 1326 to 1350. Supremacy Games. 1326 wanting to leave but forced to remain. Humans are taking the biggest hit because of me. Felix rubbed his tiresome eyelids. The only way to truly stop all of this madness is through ending that F***'s reign. That sounds all good, but even Fenrir has failed. Asna replied. I didn't fail. Fenrir growled in irritation. He stopped taking my fights and escaped at first sight. In the past 6 decades, there were more than 50 battles between Fenrir and Lucifer, and the score was 50-0 in Fenrir's favor. This made Lucifer take the smart decision of avoiding the battles entirely as the moment Fenrir tracked him down, he escaped through a spatial portal with the help of a demonized space worm. Even when Lady Sphinx made a personal move on Lucifer, it didn't change much. This was one of the reasons why the demonic invasion was getting harder and harder to contain. As with no one holding Lucifer down, he kept jumping from one galaxy to another. It's clear that he is getting impatient with you and has gotten much more active. Candace addressed Felix. That's why I need to start preparing to replace my bloodline and become a deity. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly. Not so fast. Lord Shiva said indifferently. You leave when I let you. I have spent 6,000 years on bettering myself in all departments. Felix tightened his fists. I have mastered 4 advanced abilities, 3 greater spatial spells, and 5 lesser time spells. I have boosted the elemental range of my first primary elements to 10,000 kilometers and the destruction elemental range to 1,000 kilometers. I even have mastered hundreds of destruction and construction abilities in addition to the conversion technique. All of this without mentioning creating new techniques and fighting styles by weaving those abilities and spells together. I have grilled myself until my brain was running on nothing but fumes. Felix said with a suppressed tone, what else do you want? More. Lord Shiva replied expressionlessly, if you are feeling proud of such small achievements, then you really don't have what it takes. More. Felix had never felt the urge to punch off one of his tenants before until this very moment. He was more than livid at Lord Shiva's stubbornness, but at the same time, he couldn't really break the deal between them. If lives weren't at stake, Felix would have respected his persistence to push him into working harder, but he just couldn't take it anymore. Take the notion that each day going by, millions of innocent lives were being demonized from the elderly to children. How about you give him a goal at least? Thor said with a solemn tone, as much as I want him to train even more, I also understand that this is messing with his mentality and focus. If he can't stay focused on his training, then it's nothing but a meaningless waste of time. I think so too. J. Ermungandr nodded, the last thing I want is for him to resent training, this is what's going to happen if his entire race went extinct and he did nothing but watch. If there wasn't a deal at hand that needed to be respected, his masters would have already bailed Felix out of the Elementals galaxy against Lord Shiva's will. With that boy's emotions being in control of him, I can see this happening. Lord Shiva frowned. While he didn't care about the humans or anyone's lives for that matter, he knew that it was best to avoid completely cutting off Felix's future. Tisk, this is truly irritating. In the end, Lord Shiva decided to cave in and give Felix some hope, the key term here was hope. Fine, you can leave after mastering at least one concept destruction ability. Lord Shiva waved his hand carelessly. Everyone was left at a loss for words as they stared at the heartless Lord Shiva. Forcing Felix to master concept destruction ability was the same as sealing him for additional millennia if not more. I barely managed to master 4 advanced spells from each element besides the destruction element. Felix gritted his teeth, I left it out for a reason. I don't care about your reason. Lord Shiva replied, after you replace my bloodline, you will lose concept destruction trident. If you left before mastering a similar ability, God knows how long it will take you in the real universe to pull it off. Discover W stories on no/e/lbin.com. Felix remained silent as he knew that Lord Shiva's reasoning was correct. Concept destruction trident was one of Felix's greatest abilities as it allowed him to pull off unique utilization. Without it, he wouldn't be able to separate Nemo from his alter ego. If Lord Shiva's ultimate ability, totality collapse wasn't a must-have, he would have chosen to edge the trident. Unfortunately, he couldn't keep both and when he replaced his bloodline, one of them had to go. However, this didn't mean that it would be easy to master a concept destruction ability as it was considered one of the most difficult advanced abilities. Without an elemental helping me enhance my destruction affinity talent, I won't be able to master it even with thousands of years invested solely in it. Felix covered his face. By then, more than 40% of the Alliance's territory would have fallen to the demonic plague. 40%, that's close to half. Even if Felix returned to the real universe and eliminated Lucifer once and for all, this wouldn't return the hundreds of billions of lives lost or recover the infected planets. The SG Alliance would live with a constant reminder of the damages done by the demonic invasion for eternity. That's not my problem, you want to leave this galaxy. Master a concept destruction ability. Lord Shiva shared calmly, but don't worry, I am not unreasonable, I will help you master it. It's not enough, I am not going to spend more than a millennia here. Felix eyed him with an icy expression. Felix was grateful for Lord Shiva's gifts and help, but he still harbored a deep sense of resentment toward him. It was understandable as Lord Shiva wasn't considering Felix as his student but as a mere means to fulfill a goal. It was nothing more than a transactional deal between them. What do you have in mind? Asna asked as she gave Lord Shiva a death glare. I need to enhance my destruction affinity talent as I did with the other elements. Felix noted. If it wasn't for the tribe chief's help, Felix wouldn't have reached the 10,000 km range in 4 of his elements. If he had it for his destruction manipulation, he would have pushed it in a similar fashion too. We have talked about this, there is only one destruction elemental in this galaxy and she will never agree to meet you. Thor said. Thor was so certain that she wouldn't meet with Felix because the destruction elemental was none other than Mother Siamese herself. In this galaxy, she was considered the death elemental, life elemental, destruction elemental, and even creation elemental. As the consciousness of an entire galaxy, she had the freedom to do whatever she desired in her own body, which meant she had control over all elements and laws alike as long as they were in the same matter dimension. For example, she had no control over the void realm and spirit realm. Since she had the powers of destruction and could erase anything inside her own territory, it would be a walk in the park for her to help Felix enhance his destruction affinity or even his other affinities to a new height. But, this was for Mother Siamese and one shouldn't forget how she literally gave Felix a favor just to make him stay away from Lord Zervan in her galaxy. I have to give it a try. Felix narrowed his eyes, too many lives are at stake to be prideful. Felix knew that there was more than a 99.99% chance of Mother Siamese humiliating him before sending him on his merry way, but he still planned on seeking her help. Without her, it would be impossible for him to master a concept destruction ability in less than a millennia. While Felix was figuring out a method to seek Mother Siamese's assistance, his friends were in a standalone battle against a demonic army under the leadership of Prince Beelzebub. They were on a war-torn landscape of a crimson ruined planet called Muranize. The once azure sky now roared with an ominous scarlet, setting a chilling tableau of a clash of titanic forces. The air was heavy with the scent of brimstone, a nauseating reminder of the demonic forces that held sway. Against this apocalyptic backdrop, one colossal figure stood at the forefront of the teeming legion of demons. Beelzebub, a monstrous form with blackened wings, his every move orchestrated a symphony of death. On the opposing side, a frail yet defiant human force steeled itself for the impending onslaught. At their helm stood Noah, his usually human features contorted into a werewolf's fierce countenance. His breath crystallized in the sulphurous air, signifying his mastery over the ice element. The chill of his power brought a contrast to the relentless heat of the wasteland. Beside him, Olivia, her eyes a vivid green that mirrored the life force she commanded. At her behest, vines erupted from the barren soil, thorny tendrils forming a living barrier against the demonic force. They swayed as if in a breeze, though no wind blew on this forsaken planet, a testament to the power of the plant element she wielded. Lastly, there was Malak, her eyes flickering with the intensity of a raging bonfire. Around her, spirals of flame danced, painting terrifying shadows upon the crimson ground. These two have an extraordinary feel to them, they will serve as excellent subordinates. Prince Beelzebub licked his lips as he eyed Noah and Olivia. 1327 Noah and Olivia vs Prince Beelzebub. Malak, it's best that you take what remained of our army and evacuate the planet. Olivia said with a hardened expression. They already did more than enough. No, I can still fight. Malak refused with a look filled with hatred directed at Prince Beelzebub and his demon army. Her hatred was understandable as this planet was her home where her family and friends lived, and where she was born. Yet, it was turned into a demon fest in less than a week after Prince Beelzebub stepped foot in it with a couple of his subordinates. If it wasn't for Boredom, connecting them straight to the planet with a wormhole, not a single soul would have remained. Malak, leave. Noah ordered coldly, you will do nothing but hold us back. Noah. Olivia bit her tongue to refrain from saying more. As much as Noah's statement sounded cocky and insulting to Malak's pride, she knew that he was right. Malak wasn't an Origin Realm bloodliner and even though she had abilities belonging to the fire primogenitor, it wouldn't be enough against Prince Beelzebub. She could easily take care of some lesser demons as her sacred fire was capable of burning anything, but the moment Prince Beelzebub realized her importance to Noah and Olivia, he could easily threaten to kill her with merely his spiritual pressure. That was the real definition of being a burden. I understand, please be careful. As much as it pained her, Malak was rational enough to keep her emotions to herself and try to leave the battlefield with the rest of their army. Alas, Prince Beelzebub hadn't given her his approval. The only way anyone is leaving here is either as a demon or as food. Prince Beelzebub sneered as he ordered his demon army, catch them all. Roar. Thud. 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 As the ground quaked under the demonic charge, Olivia and Noah stood side by side, resolute against the tide of monstrous forms before them. Prince Beelzebub towered above his infernal army, his presence corrosive darkness that tainted the very air around him. Olivia. On it. Summoning the forces of nature, Olivia extended her hand, a tiny, luminescent seed resting in her palm. Seed of life. With a determined cry, she thrust it into the ground. Almost instantly, the earth pulsed with life, a vast tree erupting forth, its branches piercing the crimson sky. The tree shimmered with vitality, its leaves a vibrant hue of emerald green that contrasted starkly against the sanguine terrain. From its branches fell dozens of seeds, each giving birth to a variety of plant creatures. Venus flytrap-like beasts snapped at the demons with sharp, thorny jaws. Creepers slithered along the ground like serpents, ensnaring and constricting the infernal soldiers. Massive ants, the guardians of the tree of life, lumbered forward, their bark-covered fists smashing through the demon ranks with earth-shaking force. Roar. Roar. It was a never-ending army of alive plant creatures, rushing to protect their nature goddess. The hell? How can a human possess such a divine ability? Prince Beelzebub was startled as he lifted his head to the limit and he still wasn't able to see the true height of the ever-growing tree. Master, this must be the infamous demon slayer, World Tree Princess. His subordinate gulped a mouthful as he had read too many stories about Olivia against the demon invasion. The signature move that earned her that dignified nickname was Lady Yggdrasil's ultimate ability, Seed of Life. Usually, the Seed of Life should give birth to a perfect clone of Lady Yggdrasil, but that's only if her wisp of consciousness was implanted in the seed beforehand. Either this or leave it to grow until Lady Yggdrasil's consciousness gets born on its own. Olivia was using the Seed of Life to create the real world tree and control all of its powers since there was no wisp of consciousness to control it. Lady Yggdrasil gave her permission to use her ultimate ability under one condition, never let it grow bigger than a planet. Olivia has been respecting this condition ever since. So that's her? I have heard that she doesn't move alone and is always accompanied by a much scarier monster. Prince Beelzebub remarked with a curious tone as he eyed Noah, it must be him. It's him, Hailstorm Harbinger. His subordinate nodded with an edgy look like he was trying to find a way to escape as quickly as possible. You dare be afraid while being in my presence? Prince Beelzebub glared at him. Master, those two are different. His subordinate proclaimed with a fearful tone as he watched his demon army getting absolutely wrecked by the plant army, they are capable of killing us for real. The moment he said so, Prince Beelzebub's eyes widened a bit in surprise at the sight of his demon army getting reduced in numbers at a noticeable speed. When he studied the battlefield a bit more, he realized that his demons were being killed through an overdose of purities. The world tree was one of the purest objects in the entire universe as it was brimming with a seemingly never-ending source of life. The demons had never fought against someone capable of using pure energy as a weapon. It was already a tested fact that evil energy's opposite force was pure energy, and when taken in great quantities, it does more harm than good as it overwhelmed it completely. This was exactly what was happening on the battlefield as the plant creatures were weaponized with pure energy, which stripped the evil energy from the demons, and without evil energy around, the demons could neither fight nor revive. In other words, Olivia was one of the best counters to demons, which was the original reason for her fame to spread far and wide in the past 6 decades. I have to cut down that tree before I lose my entire army. Prince Beelzebub's expression turned cold as he stared at Olivia, who was floating above a green leaf. But first, I have to get rid of her bodyguard. Prince Beelzebub knew that he couldn't get close to Olivia while Noah was standing in front of the world tree with intense cold air swirling around him. Noah realized that Prince Beelzebub was about to make his move, which created a palpable tension hung in the sulphurous air. Let's see if you are truly worthy of your nickname, the Hailstorm Harbinger. Whoosh. The first move was made by Beelzebub. With a sweeping gesture, he invoked a whirlwind of corrupted energy. The force twisted and turned, an embodiment of raw destructive power. The demonic tornado tore through the barren land, racing towards Noah. Noah reacted quickly. With a powerful swing of his hand, he summoned a barrage of sharp icicles, each glowing with a chilling light. They soared into the maelstrom, freezing and slowing its spin. Boom! Using a smaller burst of frost, Noah disrupted the whirlwind, causing it to scatter, its dark energy dissipating into harmless wisps. Unperturbed, Beelzebub summoned a dark lance, a condensation of his corrupting energy. With veins protruding from his arm, he hurled it toward Noah. In response, Noah formed a thick shield of frost, the lance embedding itself in the barrier before disintegrating, its destructive power nullified. Though, it didn't leave peacefully as the evil energy managed to corrupt the ice shield. Die, hey. However, just as Prince Beelzebub planned to manifest corrupted ice spikes from the shield and penetrate Noah's entire body, the corruption faded away from the ice shield, returning it to normal. All of this because of the pure energy potency around Noah that was being emitted from the world tree. My turn. Noah wasn't only about defense. The ground beneath his feet froze as he rushed towards Beelzebub. His path was a trail of ice, shards of frost spreading out around him, threatening to ensnare the demon prince. Beelzebub countered with a shockwave of corrupting energy, shattering the frost. Yet Noah was relentless. He channeled his energy, surrounding himself with a frosty aura, turning himself into a living blizzard. Ice shards spun around him, cold winds intensified his speed as he charged Beelzebub, landing a series of blows on the demon prince. Beelzebub retaliated with a roiling surge of his dark energy, trying to corrupt Noah's icy armor, yet Noah, focusing his inner chill, solidified his defenses, freezing the corruption before it could take hold. He turned Beelzebub's strength against him, the once corruptive energy now frozen spikes that erupted back towards the demon prince. Irritating little **T. Bellowing in anger, Beelzebub launched himself into the air, seeking a reprieve from Noah's relentless assault. He rained down spheres of dark energy, trying to corrupt the field to his advantage. However, Noah retaliated with a flurry of icy gusts, transforming the spheres into harmless sleet before they could impact the ground. An icy faint smile crept upon Noah's face as he defended himself against Beelzebub's relentless barrage. It's time, Absolute Zero. He called in his mind the instant he noticed that Beelzebub had lost his cool and was fighting with negative emotions at the helm. As a demon prince, to be unable to kill a mere human in front of his subordinates and demon army was extremely humiliating. Soon, he would be put in a much more humiliating situation as a wave of frost erupted from Noah, consuming everything in its path. The temperature plummeted, reality seeming to distort under the immense cold. The wave reached Beelzebub in his airborne state, and everything stopped. Beelzebub was frozen mid-flight, his monstrous features locked in a surprised snarl. Time around him came to a standstill, the prince trapped within an eternal block of ice, his corruptive energy was silenced, the chilling peace of Absolute Zero prevailing. Noah stood amidst the quiet, breathing heavily. His fierce eyes never left Beelzebub's frozen form. While the end result was similar to Fenrir's utilization, its range was nowhere close as Noah barely managed to cover a few kilometers in Absolute Zero and his energy was plummeting at a crazy speed. He never used it before in his demon hunt for this sole reason, which worked perfectly as it caught Prince Beelzebub completely off guard. What the hell did he do? Prince Beelzebub's thoughts were thrown in disarray as his frozen eyes roamed around him, showing him the uncanny side of the battlefield being frozen in time. Noah made sure to control his Absolute Zero frost wave to cover only the battlefield in front of him, which left Olivia, the world tree, Malak, and the stunned human army outside of his abilities range. Olivia, finish him off. Noah said expressionlessly. Right away. Olivia smiled coldly while pointing her tiny fair finger at Prince Beelzebub. Prince Beelzebub felt chills course down his spine the moment his eyes came in contact with the finger. He didn't know what she was going to do, but his instincts screamed at him to run away. Alas, when even Lucifer was incapable of breaking past Absolute Zero's freeze, he could only watch with wide open eyes as Olivia's finger began to illuminate with green light. 1328 Attempting to reverse the demonization process. With eyes closed, Olivia channeled infinite pure life force energy from the world tree into a single point at the tip of her finger. Top VL updates on n/o/v/lb/in.com. And then, she unleashed it. A vivid beam of brilliant green light lanced from her outstretched hand, a stream of pure, raw life force. It was the first breath of spring, the resounding crash of a waterfall, the silent, peaceful growth of the smallest sprout breaking through the soil after a long winter. The sight was almost too much to bear something so raw, pure, and potent that it commanded reverence and awe from all who beheld it. Oh no. Beelzebub, the embodiment of corruption and decay, realized right away that this beam was going to end him. Time is frozen around me, it's impossible for it to hit me. Just as this thought came into his mind, Prince Beelzebub noticed that the chilling wave of Absolute Zero had retracted the area around him, but it wasn't removed from him. Bastard. This made him understand that Noah was capable of controlling the range as he pleased even after utilization. The moment Noah saw that the beam had landed on Prince Beelzebub, he cancelled his ultimate ability, freeing his enemy from its clutches. But, it didn't matter anymore as there was no way Prince Beelzebub could survive the intensity of the beam as it burned through the toxic fumes and corrosive energies that protected him. He roared, a horrifying, guttural sound that reverberated through the land. But his demoniac power could not match the primal potency of life. The green light engulfed him, scorching his form, sizzling and crackling against his charred flesh. His skeletal frame began to crumble, his once formidable strength faltering. His roar became a whimper, his icy gaze melted into fear. As the beam subsided, what remained of Beelzebub was a pitiful, waning shadow, his form barely clinging to existence. Finally, weakened and crippled, the demon prince fell, succumbing to the immense power of life that had overwhelmed him. As Beelzebub's form collapsed, disintegrating into the charred ground, the sight of Olivia standing tall, her silhouette against the backdrop of his demise, was met by a moment of stunned silence. Then, as if a dam had broken, a cacophony of cheers and cries erupted from the human army. Woah! Woah! Warriors, faces streaked with the grime of battle but eyes alight with relief and victory, raised their weapons high, their thunderous roars echoing through the battlefield. Men and women embraced, tears streaming freely, mixing with the dirt on their cheeks. The very air vibrated with the power of their exultation, their voices a mighty hymn of triumph against the backdrop of the fallen demon prince. The relief and joyous disbelief surged like a tidal wave through their ranks, their hearts unburdened from the dread that had once shackled them. Although Prince Beelzebub merely spent a week on this planet, he put everyone through a hell that seemed to last for an eternity. Good work, Olivia, please finish off the rest. Noah stated expressionlessly as he walked away, we have to keep moving. No, I want to give it another try. Olivia shook her head as she eyed the army of humanoid lesser demons, trying their best to escape from the clutches of the World Tree's creatures. With the death of Prince Beelzebub, any intelligent lesser demon realized that only damnation awaited them on this battlefield. Unlike him, they couldn't be revived after losing connection with evil energy. Again. Noah frowned, we can't be wasting our time with this. You have tried it more than I can remember in the past 6 decades and failed each time. It's time to let it go. No. Elder Yggdrasil has told me that it's achievable and it depends on my control. Olivia said with a firm tone, I will never forgive myself for giving up halfway, especially when I have nothing to lose. Olivia, each second wasted translated to thousands of more lives lost somewhere else, lives that can be saved if we got there in time. Noah shook his head, we have too much to lose. Lives are lost each moment during this wicked invasion, if I manage to succeed in this, I will actually start saving real lives. Sigh, fine. Seeing that Olivia wasn't budging in her decision, Noah could only drop the subject and provide some assistance. He did so by casting his spiritual pressure across the battlefield, which caused the majority of escaping demons to drop to the ground and remain frozen with frightened expressions. You only have 2 minutes. Noah stated with a deep frown. Since spiritual pressure consumed mental energy, it would be impossible for Noah to keep everyone under his influence forever. It's enough. Olivia murmured as she closed her eyes again and sat on the giant green leaf. She resembled a goddess of nature with her flowery hair and a botanical wonder of a dress, artfully crafted from a myriad of vibrant blooms, each petal seamlessly intertwined to form a flowing silhouette that gave the impression of a walking garden in perpetual spring. I can do this. After a few moments of concentration, Olivia stood steadfast, her arms extended towards the sky as if reaching for the divine. She invoked the World Tree's power, her words stirring the ancient energy within its heartwood. As her command echoed through the world, the tree responded. Its colossal branches swayed, leaves shimmering with an otherworldly light, their verdant hue casting an emerald glow over the tainted land. With a sweeping gesture from Olivia, the branches stretched out, their gnarled forms bending and contorting, seeking the captive souls within the throngs of demons. No. Please. Save me. Let me go *TCH. Leaves enveloped the tormented demons, forming cocoons of verdant life around their grotesque forms. The air filled with a deep hum, a resonating vibration that signaled the beginning of an extraordinary transformation. What is she doing? Why isn't she killing them? One of the soldiers asked with a deep sense of hatred as he stared at cocooned demons. The rest of the soldiers also started getting rowdy as they anticipated that Olivia would end the demons' lives, not seal them inside weird cocoons. Their planet was ruined, their cities were uprooted, and their families were ripped apart. If those soldiers weren't trained to keep their emotions under control, they would have ignored Noah's orders and fought the demon army even if it meant meeting their maker. She is doing something a million times better than killing those demons. Malik stated with a tone filled with hope, she is attempting to reverse the demonization process. Hey. Impossible. Are you being serious? No one took the news with an open mind as every one of them felt that she was speaking nonsense. Who could blame them? It was already universally approved that the moment someone became a demon, the transformation was permanent and there was no looking back anymore. This wasn't a rumor, but a hard-supported fact by the Metal Race and the rest of the Alliance leaders after they had failed to reverse the demonization process through hundreds of utilized methods. They tried technology, genetic manipulation, curses, cleansing rituals, and the list goes on. Unfortunately, nothing worked as they found out that the evil energy became rooted inside the person's soul, which was the reason demons could get revived infinitely with enough supply of evil energy. But this also meant that those souls could not live without evil energy, and if it was stripped from their souls, they end up dropping dead. Well, she has tried to pull it off countless times and failed every time, but I still have faith in her. Malik murmured as she eyed Olivia. I can't suck too much evil energy from their souls as it will collapse before the replacement can occur. I have to be patient and careful. While everyone was discussing the impossibility of this miracle, under Olivia's guidance, the World Tree began to leach the corrupted energy from the ensnared demons. The dark miasma swirled and dissipated into the tree's leaves, a stark contrast against their radiant green. The World Tree, a living conduit of life's primal essence, took on the weight of this darkness, diluting and neutralizing the malevolent force that had consumed them. Simultaneously, a warm, golden light pulsed from the tree, imbuing the encapsulated beings with pure, vital energy. It infiltrated their demonic forms, glowing brighter with every heartbeat, a beacon in the depth of their darkness. This ethereal energy began to reverse the corruption, washing over the demons like a tide, replacing their monstrous forms with the gentle silhouette of humanity. No one knew this was happening as the bright cocoon hid those demons completely. Even the demons were in the dark as they were all put into a trance, seemingly enjoying the sensation of evilness getting cleansed from them and replaced with warmness. Even though the situation seemed under control and looking good, Olivia didn't lose even an ounce of her focus. Slowly. As this sacred dance of energy unfolded, each corrupted soul was reborn under the world tree's nurturing touch. The grotesque, twisted forms gave way to the soft lines and familiar shapes of men and women, their original forms restored under her grace. Uncontrollable smiles broke in the faces of those humans and other mixed-in races as they snuggled inside the cocoon, resembling children being embraced by their loving mothers. I did it. Olivia opened her stunned eyes and stared at the cocoons. Within the now translucent cocoons, the newly purified humans rested peacefully, their serene faces illuminated by the soft, glowing light as the protective shells gently unfurled, revealing their restored forms in a tableau of rebirth and redemption. She succeeded. Even Noah's cold expression was broken and replaced with a sense of disbelief. 1329 Who to save first? While the others were stunned by the sight of their people returning to their original forms, he was the only one who had seen the ugly scene of when Olivia failed to make it happen. He wasn't lying when he said that he couldn't remember how many times Olivia had tried and failed, as it was in the thousands if not more. In all of those failed attempts, the demons end up getting killed permanently because Olivia hadn't reached the perfect equilibrium between sucking off evil energy and replacing it with pure energy inside the soul. This was the secret to reversing the demonization process, and Olivia tried her very best to find this precise balance for more than 60 years, and now that she had finally pulled it off, neither Noah nor she could believe it. Father. That's my dog there, sob, my daughter. Captain. The moment the soldiers woke up from their daze, their raging emotions at the sight of their serene loved ones made them ignore the orders and rush toward the wide-open cocoons. Neither Olivia nor Noah stopped them as the threat of the demons in the area was put to rest. The soldiers, their eyes no longer radiating an infernal crimson but instead shimmering with tears of relief and gratitude, looked upon their families, their comrades, and their lovers. Men and women who were lost to monstrous transformation had been returned to their human forms, their souls reclaimed from the very precipice of oblivion. Emotions swelled and voices choked as reunions unfolded, every warm embrace and tear-streaked face a testament to the miraculous feat achieved. Each reunion was punctuated by a cacophony of relief-laden laughter, gasps of disbelief, and heartfelt sobs. The air was heavy with the profound weight of redemption and homecoming. At that moment, under the benevolent shadow of the world tree, not a single eye was dry, not a single heart was untouched by the magic of seeing their loved ones restored. The goddess that made this happen wasn't forgotten as everyone lifted their heads and bowed deeply with an intense sense of appreciation and gratitude that Olivia felt even from kilometers away. While others would get a kick out of being worshipped as a savior and a hero, Olivia didn't even think about this for a moment. I can truly save lives now. This was the only thing that she cared about, and now that she finally managed to find the perfect balance after thousands of failures, she could finally stop killing demons and helping them return to their original lives. Noah appeared next to Olivia and apologized. I am sorry for doubting you. Don't be, I was doubting myself just as much. Olivia sighed in relief and showed a smile as brilliant as sunshine. What matters is that it worked. This changes everything and we have to let Felix on it. Noah switched to his serious tone. Let's report this while we reverse the demonization of everyone on this planet. Olivia said. I had the same thought. While Noah and Olivia had gotten rid of Prince Beelzebub and most of his army on this battlefield, it didn't mean that the entire planet was cleaned from demons. So, without wasting a moment of their time, Olivia cancelled out her world tree and departed with Noah, leaving Malik to handle the muddled undemonized army as it seemed like all of them were having difficulty with their long-term memory. This is huge. The fact that we can reverse the demonization process means that we won't need to give up on our people. Felix expressed with a delighted tone as he watched a live stream of Olivia and Noah using the same method with another group of demons. It's good, but it's not a perfect solution. Asna shook her head. It consumes too much energy and Olivia can't be everywhere. As she said, Olivia was already huffing and puffing after the second attempt. It was understandable as she didn't have a conversion technique like Felix, which meant she had to take breaks to refill her energy through elemental stones. It's not efficient, I agree with that. Felix said, but it's all that we have at the moment. I think it's best to give Olivia a powerful team made out of the best and assist her with gathering as many demons as possible before starting the process. Candace suggested. Find PTTES on n/VLN.cm. That will indeed make sure that we reverse the demonization of as many demons as possible while leaving Olivia to maintain her energy for the process solely. Felix nodded in support. He knew that using the ultimate ability was the biggest consumption of energy instead of reversing the demonization. This meant that it was possible for Olivia to handle billions of demons stacked up in one simultaneously as long as she had protection and those demons weren't causing trouble. If we told the universe about this, I believe most of the lesser demons would come voluntarily to reverse the demonization process as they still maintained their rationality. While demons acted upon their evil thoughts after their demonization, they still were rational enough to understand that their demonization came with more negatives than positives. The threat of losing their rationality if not fed with enough purities would push them to seek out reversing the demonization process if it was truly proven to work. True, but we can't risk having the news getting public so soon. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly. The demon princes and even Lucifer might make his move personally on her. It's too risky. I can be her bodyguard. Fenrir proposed expressionlessly. Hey, you will do that. Felix and the others were surprised. As a primogenitor, they felt that it was beneath him to act as a bodyguard to a mortal, no matter how important she was. Protecting her is a mere bonus. Fenrir disclosed calmly, if she made enough noise through her reverse demonization, Lucifer might make a move on her and I will be waiting for him. So, you are planning to wait for him to come on his own. Felix smiled, it's really a good method. With Fenrir being around Olivia, whether Lucifer made his move on Olivia or not, it wouldn't matter as they would be the ones winning this struggle. Without further ado, Felix shared the news with Olivia and Noah. Next, he commenced an emergency inner circle meeting to report the news as he knew that the SG Alliance needed a win badly. After spending 10 minutes updating them on the situation, most of the leaders' faces seemed to have brightened up. The situation in my galaxy is too dire, I request to have it prioritized. Emperor Local stated with a solemn tone. The situation is dire in all places. Queen Allura retorted, but if there is a race that needs prioritization, it's definitely the humans. As much as Emperor Local wanted to fight this, he knew that the evidence wasn't on his side. The humans were really taking the worst beating as the demons prioritized everyone else. Everyone knew the reason as Lucifer had long since brought the matter to the public about Felix's meeting. He told everyone that he would pause the demonic invasion if Felix decided to meet with him personally for a negotiation. Everyone thought that Felix would have accepted it in a heartbeat due to his Grand Supreme title, but to everyone's surprise, he never bothered to reply to him. This resulted in Felix's reputation taking even a bigger hit. 1330 A ludicrous plan. In another sense, humans were already finding it difficult to resist the invasion even when they were at their strongest, which meant that even if tens of billions of humans were saved, they still wouldn't be able to defend themselves again. You think I didn't think of that and came up with a method to handle it? Felix stated calmly before anyone could open their mouth to support Emperor Runanth. What's your plan, exactly? You don't have to worry about that. All you have to know is that no one will get demonized twice under my watch. No. With this method, we can finally reverse the demonization of my husband and the rest of the high-profile figures. We must focus on them. High Chieftain Lokaka's wife Shaman Nobili suggested with an agitated tone after seeing that everyone was caving into Felix's decision. She had taken control after her husband switched to the other side and now that she found hope of him returning to her side, she would be a fool to give up on it. You know we can't do that since the chieftain is now considered Lucifer's second hand and helper in his travels. Queen Alfreda shook her head. The same applies to other higher profile targets as it would be much more difficult to reverse the demonization when they are displaying such an abnormal level of loyalty to Lucifer. We aren't in a place of wasting time convincing loyal subjects to turn when we have billions of willing subjects. With that being said, Felix left the meeting under Shaman Nobili's hateful look, knowing that he had the votes on his side in this matter and she could do nothing to change it. You're crazy. But, why do I think it will work? Asna reacted after hearing about Felix's plan in more detail. Felix really didn't bluff the Alliance's leaders and had thought of a method to ensure that those humans would not get demonized again. It was actually through using the unique void creatures, gelatinous cubes, visit Novelbin, C/M for the L-test updates. I always had in mind of using the gelatinous cubes to devour planets and everyone on it to keep them protected. Sure, their dreams will be devoured, but they won't be harmed physically and mentally even with centuries passing by. Felix stated with Nemo's unquestionable authority, he could easily order the gelatinous cubes to expel the planets back to the universe after we end the war without a single fault in them. If this plan was ever presented to the Alliance leaders, they would have questioned Felix's sanity. Who could blame them? Felix was literally attempting to imprison hundreds of billions of people if not more inside the stomach of nightmarish monsters. As much as ludicrous sounded, Asna, Candace, and the rest of the tenants found it quite a genius move. You never bothered to mention it before since you know that no sane human will agree to it and you can't force them against their will. Candace smiled, but, if we told the recently saved people about it, they will most definitely agree to it if it meant escaping from the horror of being demonized again. It's the same as choosing a lesser evil. Felix nodded. Only, this strategy will actually help us keep a significant amount of humans safe without worrying for a second about them. Felix was sure about this since the gelatinous cubes were immune to evil energy and not even Lucifer could do anything to them. In addition, most of the gelatinous cubes across the entire universe were busy getting guided to devour fallen planets under the demonic rulership. This meant, there must be hundreds of planets inside of them with an unfathomable number of slumbering demons. With Olivia's assistance, they could reverse the demonization process and help them. In other words, this plan was already in full gear before Felix even proposed it. For this plan to work, we need to minimize the movement of the gelatinous cubes, which means we must prioritize planets with the most significant casualties. Felix addressed. Even with the Void Realm involved, the gelatinous cubes were still too slow and Felix didn't want to keep hundreds of Void citizens accompanying it all the time to open void rifts big enough for its size. I am ready. Candace asked, what do you need me to do? Take me to the nearest gelatinous cube. Felix disclosed, we need to clean it up first. Since Felix's clone was already in the Milky Way galaxy as he was also providing help through commanding large armies of void creatures, it took him a couple of days to reach his destination. What came into his sight was a gelatinous cube in the process of devouring a planet. The spectacle was oddly hypnotic, akin to an undersea creature consuming its prey. The planet was steadily absorbed, gradually losing its colors as the cube's body slowly took it in. The devouring was silent yet dramatic, the cube's insides dancing with the final embers of a once vibrant world. As it floated through the cosmos, the humongous dreamer offered a chilling reminder of the unknown threats that lurked in the vast expanse of the universe, its dark beauty a symbol of the uncanny and terrifying wonders hidden in the cosmos. This magnificent creature was under Felix's control, which was really hard to believe even for him. After waiting a couple of hours until the planet was completely within the dreamer's body, Felix requested Nemo with a serious tone, order him to expel all the ruined celestial bodies to save up some space. Also, make sure to not damage the latest devoured planets. Nemo swiftly jumped inside the void realm and appeared right next to the dreamer. With the size difference between them, the scene looked like a raccoon was floating in the atmosphere of a planet. Still, the moment Nemo's eyes turned red, the dreamer seemed to freeze in its place. In a few moments at best, the dreamer restarted its movement. Within its spectral form, most of the absorbed celestial bodies began to shift and roil. The gelatinous mass shimmered and convulsed, undulating with strange cosmic energies. Suddenly, with a silent, otherworldly energy, the spectral cube contracted, and in a cascade of luminous, iridescent jelly, it expelled the ruined celestial bodies. They emerged, twisted and broken, fragments of once majestic worlds and dying stars, tumbling back into the endless void of space. The visual was hauntingly beautiful, a celestial elegy for the devoured, their remains expelled in a silent funeral procession across the star-studded expanse. Good work. When Felix saw that the newest absorbed planets weren't touched or affected by the process, he couldn't help but sigh in relief. The wrathful creators, the world eaters, and gelatinous cubes might not possess the same intelligence as their peers, but they were still capable of understanding the simplest orders as long as they came from a source of authority. In this universe, there were only 3 sources of authority: Nemo, his alter ego, and the paragon of sins. Candace, choose the planet with the highest number of demons and take it there. Felix ordered, I will meet you there with Olivia and Noah. Felix had to oversee the plan personally since Nemo was a must to command the cube and avoid having him devour the planet and cause it to clash with the others. Although the chance was minimal, it was best to make sure that it wouldn't happen. A few more days later, Felix, Olivia, and Noah had arrived at the latest invaded solar system within the Bardo Empire. Fenrir was outside of the galaxy, so it was going to take him a while to arrive even with Bodadi as his personal space worm and a void citizen at his disposal. Felix assigned Bodadi to help out Fenrir since he had improved immensely in the elemental galaxy and even surpassed many senior space worms in his race. Right now, he was helping only Felix's loved ones like Fenrir, Selfie, Olivia, and Noah during their travels. His role was more important than anyone could anticipate. In those hard times, the space worm race had retracted most of their citizens inside new hidden dimensional pockets to avoid High Chieftain Lakaka from finding and demonizing them. Because of this, most of the express wormholes were left without anyone to fuel them and caused a universal-wide shutdown of the wormhole network. This was one of the reasons why the SG Alliance was falling much harder, as without a wormhole network, they couldn't send reinforcements in time even if they wanted. 1331 I can't let him down. This is horrible. Olivia commentated with a saddened tone as she watched the condition of the planet, Ictarian. The demons, with their humanoid forms twisted by the feral characteristics of demons, appear to be grotesque caricatures of humanity. They teem across the Ictarian surface, their hellish silhouette distorting the crimson glow of the Ictarian's ever-present twilight. Every source of purity in this desolate world was a target for their gnawing hunger, the only anchor to their fleeting sanity. Once pristine lakes and rivers had been drained of their lucidity, the water was now tainted and murky. The flora of Ictarian had not been spared, either. Where verdant forests and sprawling meadows once thrived, there were now only skeletal remains. Trees, stripped of their lush leaves and vitality, stood like ashen monuments to a world that once was. Each plant's purity had been leached away, devoured by the ravenous hordes to satiate their need. Let's begin before the planet loses its luster completely. Felix stated calmly. I am ready. Olivia nodded. Without further ado, Olivia landed near the surface with Noah as her guardian, keeping the demons away from her. Then, she gave birth to another world tree, and this time she fed it plenty of her energy and allowed it the freedom to grow on its own uninterrupted. Damn. Felix expressed with an amazed tone as he lifted his head and watched the world tree cast a shadow across thousands of kilometers, if not more. It had gotten so big, it was seen from outer space. Here they come. Asna disclosed lazily. She was speaking about the rushing hordes of animalistic and lesser demons, rushing from every direction towards the world tree. Their bloodshot eyes and acidic saliva flying everywhere were enough to figure out that the world tree's intense life force was an irresistible magnet on this barren planet. Felix and his companions knew this was going to happen, which was the reason they didn't plan on seeking to group up the demons. There are at least hundreds of millions rushing at once. Felix asked with a solemn tone, can you really handle them? Trust me. Olivia merely smiled in response. Get them. Felix didn't bring out the subject again and retracted to the backlands, sitting above one of the trillions of the world tree's leaves. 1 million, 100 million, or even a billion demons. It's my time to prove my worth to Felix after everything he has done to me, Olivia thought with a firm expression as she stood at the world tree's base. I can't let him down. Her hands gently touched the rough bark, her eyes closed as she connected with the consciousness of the tree. While the world tree's consciousness needed a lot of time to become intelligent and represent Lady Yggdrasil, it still possessed a consciousness that could respond to calls. Because of Olivia's purity and good-natured personality, she was easily accepted by the world tree's consciousness, which was one of the reasons it was easier for her to handle demonic armies of such magnitude. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for her to manually control each branch, leaf, or twig to defeat those demons. Ruoar. Suddenly, with a deafening roar that shook the ground, the tidal wave of demons had gotten too close to comfort. Their forms were a nightmarish tableau of humanoid and animalistic entities, their howls echoing in the desolate expanse. With their seemingly infinite numbers, most people would have shat their pants and escaped, but Olivia stood unflinching, a bastion of tranquility in the face of chaos. Kill the animalistic demons and capture the humanoid demons. With a resolute expression, she commanded the world tree. Vines erupted from the ground, lashing out like whips, piercing and ensnaring the approaching animalistic demons. Leaves sharp as razors descend from above, slicing through the demonic horde with lethal precision. Each stroke of nature's wrath, guided by Olivia, ended a grotesque existence, cleansing Ictarian of its monstrous invaders. Since those attacks were filled with potent pure energy, those animalistic demons had been killed permanently. Little Oli has really come a long way, hey. Asna expressed with a faint charming smile as she watched Olivia slaying millions of animalistic demons each second, whether they were in the ground, sky, or under, nothing escaped from the world tree's precise attacks. She sure did. Felix broke into a smile too. He never thought a day would come when he would fold his arms and watch from the backside as he left everything for Olivia to handle. She was always naive, pure, easy to bully, and overall seemed as unreliable as a child, but this scene was enough to make anyone understand that Olivia merely needed a chance to grow and mature. Felix had given her both an opportunity and a push to achieve that. She didn't make him regret it at all. Roar. As the last of the animalistic demons fell, the humanoid entities, lesser in their demonic forms yet equally ravenous, seemed a bit hesitant in their relentless charge. What a monster. I don't need purities anymore. Screw this crap. Some of them were smart enough to fight off the crazy urge to eat the world tree's purities and tried to escape with their tails between their legs. However, because they were too hurdled up by other demons, it wasn't easy in the slightest to change their trajectory. Unbeknownst to them, Olivia's battle strategy changed. She was not a senseless exterminator but a savior with a plan. Once again, she marshaled the world tree's power. This time, silky strands of glowing biomatter sprout from the tree, enveloping the humanoid demons. They resisted, their claws and fangs slashing at their restraints, but the world tree's cocoon was unyielding. One by one, the lesser demons were encapsulated, their struggle ceasing as pure energy seeped into them, beginning the arduous process of reversing their demonization. The battlefield, once a frenzy of chaos and violence, now became a surreal nursery of glowing cocoons a sanctuary of redemption in the making. Explore Todd TE stories at no/l/bin.cm. The transformation was slow and peaceful. A few more times and the whole planet will be returned to us. Felix smiled. The gelatinous cube is on the way, Candace updated. I think it will arrive after we finish the entire reverse process on the planet. Good. Felix stated, Lucifer should have been informed by now and we need to save as much as possible before he starts complicating things. As he mentioned, Lucifer indeed knew about Olivia's ability to reverse the demonization process. The news came from none other than Prince Beelzebub as he had witnessed the entire process through his subordinates recording with their AP bracelets after he was revived. Speaking about the bracelets, the SG Alliance had already found out that demons were capable of using them in by bulks a long time ago. The first thing they did was vote to ban the demons from having their consciousness linked with Queen AI at all. While the voting went through, the end result didn't change and the demons were still capable of accessing the UVR. They had no clue about this as they trusted that it was a done deal since Queen AI could never go against their unified orders. Unbeknownst to them, there was someone above them in authority when it came to dealing with Queen AI. Anyhow, the demon princes and Lucifer were knowledgeable about the matter and no one knew what they were planning against it. Meanwhile, the real Felix in the Elementals galaxy wasn't having as good of a time as his clone. He was struggling to pull out a plan that would help him win over 4 Mother Siamese and help him in his training. He had been working on this for over 2 years now and his mind was coming up with nothing but air. She is the consciousness of an entire galaxy that lived much longer than even primogenitors. She is considered a god in her territory with control over the life and death of even the tiniest blade of grass. Worst of all, she hates me for some reason. Felix ruffled his hair with a desolate deep exhale. Felix never gave up on any situation as he always found out a solution regardless of how impossible it seemed. But this? He really was starting to think that it was an idiotic idea in the first place. Who could blame him? 4 Mother Siamese needed nothing in her life as she had everything, which meant Felix had nothing to offer her for a deal. The only thing that 4 Mother Siamese wanted from Felix was to stay away from Lord Zervan, which was already a done deal and he wouldn't dare to break it. She clearly prioritizes Lord Zervan's needs more than hers. Asna suggested, I think you should find out a method that you can help Lord Zervan with something, and in return, he will ask for your favor to be fulfilled by her. How can I do that when I am banned from meeting with Lord Zervan or contacting him again? Felix shook his head, I refuse to break the terms of the deal, which means he has to come to me. Felix was certain that Lord Zervan wouldn't do that since there wasn't anything that he could do for the time primogenitor, the closest one to be considered to have all answers in the primogenitor circle. I think it's time to admit that I was way over my head with this idea. Felix smiled wryly, instead of wasting my time on this, it's best to start learning a concept destruction ability. Wait, I think I have an idea. 1332 Two goddesses collide. Everyone focused on Asna with intrigued looks. What do you have in mind? Felix asked. All test novel on novelben/.cm. You said that you have nothing to offer for 4 Mother Siamese, but the same doesn't apply to me. Asna shared. Hey? What do you mean? Felix knitted his eyebrows. Just contact her for me and let me handle this. Asna assured him. But I know what you are thinking and I don't like it. Asna showed a loving smile, we are partners and in this together. It's been a while since I have done something for you, so for once, try to depend on me. Thank you. Felix smiled back. He didn't know what Asna was going to do to help him but he trusted her with his whole heart that she had his interest at bay. He only wished that she would come through with her idea as it was truly their last hope in this plan. A few minutes later. The early evening sun languished just above the horizon, bathing the field in a golden glow. As it descended, it ignited a million tiny fires on the dandelion's gossamer puffs, transforming the landscape into an enchanted realm, each seed head shimmering like a small, ethereal sun. The air was serene, filled with the sweet, slightly bitter aroma of the countless flowers. Amidst this serene panorama stood a woman of ethereal beauty, 4 Mother Siamese, her very presence radiating divine authority. Dressed in a flowing gown of iridescent colors, she looked no less than a goddess. Her skin shimmered as if kissed by moonlight, her hair billowed around her like a liquid cascade of onyx, and her almond-shaped eyes held a depth of ancient wisdom, gleaming with a calm, knowing light. She was sitting at the center of the dandelion field with graceful ease in the same position as she hadn't moved once ever since her meeting with Felix. Although this was Felix's second time meeting her, he was actually much more nervous than the last time since he had gotten this meeting by bribing Elder Stravi heavily. Though Elder Stravi didn't have the authority to make the meeting, he did deliver a message to her. The message showed that Asna desired the meeting and it was to discuss a serious matter with her. Felix honestly didn't expect 4 Mother Siamese to snatch him from his location and teleport him back inside this dimensional pocket so quickly. 4. Save it. 4 Mother Siamese said expressionlessly, you aren't needed in this conversation. Before Felix could open his mouth, his eyes rolled at the back of his head and he fell on the field of dandelions with a serene smile. It seemed like he was put into a deep slumber and he was enjoying the dream. Asna and the rest of the tenants were left speechless, but they somewhat expected this to happen. The same applies to the rest of you. 4 Mother Siamese addressed the tenants. Let me handle this alone. Asna closed the consciousness link and with a burst of iridescence, she emerged from the AP bracelet, a luminous hologram that grew in size and solidity until she stood before the 4 Mother. A stunning apparition, her appearance was as otherworldly as the goddess herself even though she was a mere hologram. She had an ethereal beauty that was beyond earthly description, her holographic form shimmered and glowed with an inner light that mirrored the twilight sun's brilliance. The two goddesses, born of different realms yet intertwined by destiny, stood facing each other amidst the vast field of dandelions. Their presence resonated with the pulse of the universe, their gazes meeting in silent acknowledgement of the divine meeting about to take place. As the sun finally set, surrendering the heavens to the first twinkling stars, the field held its breath, its tranquility disrupted only by the soft rustling of the dandelion heads, bearing silent witness to the goddess's ethereal communion. Siamese. Asnalaya. You know my full name. Asna raised an eyebrow in surprise as her full name was known to only a closed Unigen circle. I know more than you think. Foremother Siamese said. You know Abu. I do. Good, this makes this easier then. Asna's voice rang out, powerful and gentle as the echo of a supernova. Foremother Siamese, our dual existence was not meant to be. It's a paradox, an imbalance. You and I both know the universe does not permit two goddesses to rule simultaneously. Siamese remained silent for a while. Her voice, when she finally spoke, sounded like a distant quasar pulsing through space. I am aware. I've been since my consciousness was sparked within this galaxy. And yet, I exist. Yes, Asna agreed. But you know that the only reason your existence hasn't been affected was due to my situation, due to my duties remaining untouched. Siamese closed her eyes for a moment before asking, what will happen when you return to your duties? Asna paused, constellations twinkling in her eyes. The moment I regain my full authority, you will cease to exist. You know this, Siamese. Foremother Siamese remained silent, such news should be enough to cause anyone to have an existential crisis, but she didn't even feel an ounce of agitation. It was like in the depth of her heart, she knew that this would be her future and she had already accepted it. But we can come to an arrangement to change that. Asna shared. Is it related to him? Foremother Siamese asked as she gazed at Felix. Asna nodded. It's nothing too difficult with your powers. He needs assistance with the mastery of the elements and I want you to help him hit the talent limit. Most importantly, he will be allowed to enter and leave the galaxy whenever he desires. While Felix merely wanted to enhance destruction element talent, there was no way Asna would be dumb enough to not seek out other benefits for his sake. Especially, when the favor she was handing out couldn't even compare to those two little favors. Indeed, it's nothing too difficult. Foremother Siamese seemed to agree. But, she wasn't that easy to convince. What if I refused? Foremother Siamese showed an icy glare, swirling nebulas in them. I don't respond to threats. I can have both of you killed at once and I won't need to worry about such a problem anymore. Make no mistake, this isn't a threat, I am handing you a favor worth gold in return for breadcrumbs. Asna answered composedly, I am proposing to shelter you. Your existence will be allowed to persist under my protection. If this deal fell through, I will simply continue with my rightful duties and you can't blame me for what happens to you. Asna scoffed, as for killing me and Felix? First, you won't dare do it without Lord Zervan's permission. Even if you decided to betray his wishes, you know that I cannot be killed and will always return even if it takes another 14 billion years. Everything that Asna uttered was nothing but hard facts, leaving Foremother Siamese to consider her statements in silence. If I take this deal, I'll be able to accompany him for eternity. Her form was pulsing with an intensity that reflected her inner turmoil. But, when she thought about Lord Zervan, her indecisiveness disappeared immediately and she responded with, very well, we have an agreement under one condition. He will keep his distance from Lord Zervan at all costs. I don't have a problem with that. Asna smiled for a moment before her expression changed to solemn, I don't need to tell you that this conversation must be kept to yourself. Foremother Siamese nodded as she glanced at the slumbering Felix, I will, but he is bound to ask you and I feel offended that a being of your stature needs to lie to a mere mortal. Firstly, he might have been born as a mortal, but he was never destined to remain as one. Secondly, I am not lying to him, he's just not ready yet for the truth. So, keep this to yourself or you will hear from me. Asna warned one last time before her holographic form disappeared, leaving Foremother Siamese staring at Felix's peaceful smile. So, keep this to yourself or you will hear from me. Asna warned one last time before her holographic form disappeared, leaving Foremother Siamese staring at Felix's peaceful smile. Not ready for the truth. Foremother Siamese murmured, I wonder how he will react when he finds out that his woman is the... Just as she was about to finish the sentence, Foremother Siamese shook her head and woke Felix up with a snap of a finger. As she saw him yawning while opening his muddled eyes, her eyelids twitched, it's indeed none of my business. 1333 standing for himself. Not cool at all. Felix didn't feel pleased when he woke up and realized what happened to him. He did nothing to hide his displeasure from Foremother Siamese, but her expression remained unfazed. When you decide on the element you want to work on, name it out loud. Foremother Siamese turned around after saying this and before Felix could react, he found himself back in the northern forest. I don't know why, but I want to curse badly. Felix couldn't help but feel helpless like a piece of meat in front of Foremother Siamese and he didn't like the feeling one bit. It was like he had absolutely no control over his own body and she could do whatever she wanted with him. This nasty feeling could be understood only by the people who experienced it. Don't bother yourself with that, all that matters is I got you the deal with additional benefits. Asna shared with a charming smile. You did. Felix got excited. He heard Foremother Siamese talking about picking an element or such, but he wasn't convinced yet. How did you do it? Lady Sphinx asked with an intrigued tone. As I said, I offered her something that she can't obtain. Asna answered without going through the details. When everyone heard her response, they knew that she wanted to keep the deal's details to herself. They respected her wishes even though they really wanted to know to appease their curiosity. Asna, can you promise me at least that you haven't made a deal that endangers you or takes advantage of you? Felix's excited expression switched to a solemn one immediately. In his eyes, if Asna put herself in a bad situation for his sake, he would rather not have her help him in the first place. It's nothing like that. Asna smiled, I promise you, it doesn't affect me negatively in any shape or form. Felix remained silent for a while as he did nothing but stare into Asna's sincere breathtaking eyes. In the end, he exhaled deeply and showed her a wide smile, then, he hugged her and said, thanks for making it happen. I don't need your thanks for such matters. Asna hugged him closer and whispered in his ear, as I said before, we are in this together and you can always count on me for such matters. It's just that it's been a while since you helped me with something, I started to think that you have become useful. You ungrateful prick. Asna broke off the hug and elbowed him in the stomach under his loud chuckles. While these two were joking with each other through violence, the rest of the tenants were discussing Asna's deal telepathically. They might be respectful enough to not force an answer on Asna, but it didn't mean that they couldn't come up with their own assumptions. After all, this was a deal with the galaxy's consciousness, and even if they grouped together, they doubted it would be possible to move her with anything. Do you think Asna used her identity? I am sure she did. But, what kind of favor can she provide? Well, her title is called the Origin of Laws, you can imagine what kind of powers and authority she wields in her strongest form. The primogenitors merely used common sense to recognize that Asna's prowess and authority could be considered at the top of the food chain through her title. In reality, none of them really understood her role in the universe and her true prowess since she was imprisoned at a young age. In addition, there wasn't any other Unigen with the same title being born before, which implied that her role was unique and new. Most of them assumed that it was to preside and guard over all the laws of the universe, as that's what the title said, which was honestly inconceivable. After all, there were Unigen guardians of other laws, and if Asna was born with such authority, then she would make them all obsolete and unnecessary. The universe would never do something so counterproductive. There is no way for us to know for sure unless we ask her or read her memories. We can do neither, so let's just drop it for now. Lady Sphinx said while flipping a page of her book. She wasn't a fan of empty speculations, as they served nothing but cloud one's judgment from the actual truth. Since it was impossible to read Asna's memories without her permission and the consciousness link was closed shut, there was truly no way to know. Unless, they decided to hack into her bracelet and extract the recordings of the deal, which was even more impossible. So, everyone ended up dropping this subject. At least, for now. I can't believe you actually got me free access to the galaxy whenever I desire and even help with all of my elements. Felix's eyes gleamed with a new level of excitement after hearing of the full benefits. This solved so much, especially the free access. He was always frustrated that he would be forced to leave early to handle Lucifer and waste such an amazing opportunity, but not anymore. Now, he could pop inside whenever he wanted to train any sort of ability and then pop outside again and continue his life. I am not so useless now, hey. Asna acted annoyed. Come on, you know I was messing with you, how can my beautiful Asna ever be useless? Felix appeased her with a shameless expression as he massaged her shoulders. Humph. How about this? After I finish off that F*** Lucifer and bring this war to its conclusion, I will take you to as many dates as you would like. Felix offered with a faint smile. You promise? You know my word is sacred to me. It better be, it's been forever since we have gone out together. Asna finally dropped the upset act and showed a chirpy attitude. I know. Felix became the frustrated one as he realized that he had been not focusing on his relationship with Asna even a little. But he couldn't be blamed for this, as his life was getting more stressful and stacked with life and death situations, which would make it impossible for anyone to feel romantic. After all, how could he take Asna on a date when there was an ongoing war with millions of innocent people getting killed or demonized each day? How could he be completely committed to Asna when a big portion of his mind and heart were filled with hatred and thoughts of revenge toward the three Darkins? But he realized that he could always create excuses for not developing his relationship with Asna, and those excuses would never run out. It was up to him to make time regardless of his situation. I didn't want you to feel this way. Asna smiled as she held Felix's face between her hands and looked directly into his eyes. I might enjoy some romance between us, but I love it more when I watch you dedicated to your goals. I would rather have you not comprise on this no matter what. You better listen to your girl. Lord Shiva interjected in their conversation without a care in the world. You are already distracted enough with this bullshit war, don't make me change our arrangements. Lord Shiva, I respect you as an elder and I am thankful for your gifts. But... Felix took a deep breath as he gave him a cold stare. Don't you ever get in a conversation between me and Asna? Or what? Lord Shiva lifted his sunglasses and showed Felix the coldest glare he had ever seen before in his life. Yet, Felix was not frightened in the slightest by it. He faced him and stared directly into his eyes, then he threatened, you will have no place in my consciousness space. You will kick me out after using my bloodline and taking my manipulation. Lord Shiva laughed in amusement, isn't your word sacred to you? Do not worry, if I decided to kick you out, I won't use a single utility from you even if it means messing up my future plans. Felix promised with a stoic expression. He did not seem to be joking at all, which made the admonition quite intense. His masters had no intentions of stopping him or scolding him for talking like this to a primogenitor. Lady Sphinx merely kept reading her book while Thor and Ermungander were playing chess. But, all of them shared a faint pleased smile. They were truly proud that Felix was capable of defending his territory when crossed, even if it was done by a tenant who bestowed upon him many gifts. Otherwise, he would be no different than a beggar who would accept all kinds of disrespect just because someone did him a solid. Felix had lowered his head through most of Lord Shiva's bullshit for the sake of his future, but he would never let it go if he disrespected his woman in the process. I guess you aren't AP*SSY, after all. Lord Shiva snickered in amusement as he pulled down his sunglasses and returned to his daily lazy sunbathing. Honestly, Felix was quite fortunate that he did this with Lord Shiva, since he could take any kind of crap from anyone as long as they could back it up. Most primogenitors wouldn't care whether they're in the wrong or the right, as any signs of disrespect from a mortal warranted a beatdown. Cough. So, are you still planning to enhance your destruction element affinity or push the rest to the limit? Candace asked, even though she knew that answer for the sake of changing the subject. The former. Felix answered while switching his focus to his main consciousness. Then, without an ounce of hesitation, he called out loud, I would like to work on the destruction element. As silent as a moonless night, Felix was transported by four mother Siamese to an environment filled with nothing. Literal nothingness, as he was forced to hold his breath after realizing that not an atom of oxygen existed. Read Lat St chapters at no, v, e, l, bin/c/o/m only. Where am I? 1334 Concept erase your palm. The world around Felix dissolved into an inscrutable nothingness, a void where everything ceased to exist. Yet, he was certain that he wasn't in the void realm. Relax. Mother Siamese said in a calming voice that reverberated in the silent abyss. Her eyes held a milky way of wisdom, her tone doused in quiet authority. This place will allow you to reach a level of purity you couldn't have experienced elsewhere. Felix nodded in appreciation as his voice couldn't travel in the same manner as Mother Siamese. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply as he prepared himself for the upcoming enhancement. There was a moment of silence, and then the ritual began. Tiny particles of red light began to emerge. They danced in the air, congregating around Felix. Each one pulsed with energy, their cores radiant with raw elemental power. So intense. Felix expressed. These are the particles of the destruction element, purified to their very core, she explained. Felix could feel the humming energy of the particles on his skin, a tingling sensation that bordered on discomfort. The particles began to infuse Felix's body, like golden threads weaving themselves into his very being. There was a sudden pressure, a tension building within him that seemed to expand and push against his physical limits. But, the feeling was still more soothing and enjoyable than painful. Felix embraced the feeling with his eyes closed and focused on the pure elemental particles swirling around his limbs and coursing through his veins. The sensation was ethereal like a cascade of liquid fire imbued with celestial light. His senses were flooded with raw elemental energy, each particle a note in the symphony of destruction. And then, just as abruptly as it started, it ceased. The particles disappeared, and their radiant light dimmed. Felix stood tall, his breath ragged, his body vibrating with the resonant energy of enhanced destruction affinity. We will continue tomorrow. Mother Siamese disclosed with a flat tone before sending Felix back to the northern forest. The moment Felix opened his eyes, he couldn't help but grin widely at the power thrum in his veins, a constant reminder of the enhancement. New rise at n/vel/b/i/n.co. She is really on a different level than the tribal chiefs. Candace expressed, the process barely took a few seconds and yet, you have already reached your daily limitation. This is one of the times when being too good isn't preferred. The enhancement sensation feels too good for it to end in a few seconds. Felix narrowed his eyes, but, this isn't the time to focus on such a thing. Without an ounce of hesitation, Felix teleported outside of the northern forest and restarted his training in an empty area under no one's rulership. He was already taught the concept destruction ability and the basics of how to master it 2 years ago. However, since his destruction affinity wasn't the best, he found it too hard to communicate what he desired from the destruction particles. The more complex an ability, the harder it was for elemental particles to achieve the end results without proper communication, which was possible only with those with the highest possible level of talent. It was similar in this case to mastering runic spells, but the difficulty was much more as advanced abilities could be considered to be on a much higher level than omnipotent spells. The ability chosen by Lord Shiva was called Concept Erasure Palm. The reason why concept destruction abilities were considered all advanced abilities wasn't due to the type of ability itself, but the ability to destroy concepts at will. In other words, it didn't matter if Felix chose a palm, spear, sword, or whatever. What he needed to master was manually destroying each concept at will. Lord Shiva has separated the mastery over the ability into 4 steps: understanding the concept, channeling the power, focusing the erasure, and lastly, control and release. Understanding the concept meant that erasing it was not just destruction, but a complete removal, a negation of existence while maintaining everything else around it. The very essence of the target would be wiped from reality, both physical and metaphysical. The next step would be to channel that power through his palm, transforming it into a conduit for this immense force. It wouldn't be enough to merely understand the concept, he had to become an embodiment of it, able to harness and project its energy at will. Felix raised his right hand, palm open. He visualized the energy, the essence of erasure flowing from his core, up his arm, and into his palm. With the power now coursing through him, he would then have to focus it, targeting a specific concept to erase. It was an act of extreme precision, the slightest misstep could lead to unintended consequences. In this case, he had chosen to start simple and picked gravity. Felix eyed a random pebble sitting on the ground in front of him, he envisioned the stone, and then he focused on the force of gravity that made it remain on the ground. All was well at the moment as Felix hadn't found an issue with those first three steps, but the last one, control and release. This was where his talent would be put to the test as he needed to communicate his wants to the elemental destruction particles. Steady. Felix stepped forward, his hand extended towards the stone while his eyes were closed shut to focus on the elemental particles. His palm trembled with the accumulated energy, the air around it distorting. He pushed forward, a silent shout echoing in his mind. Erase. And he released a wave of crimson energy that shot from his palm, crashing into the stone. There was a blinding flash, then, nothing. The stone was gone, erased from existence. No rubble, no dust, only the empty plinth remains. Another failure. Felix commentated as he lowered his hand. He didn't seem too disappointed as he expected such results. Although his communication with the elemental particles had somewhat improved due to his affinity enhancement, it was still not enough. While he wanted them to destroy the gravity applied to the stone, the destruction particles end up committing total destruction to it. Again. Felix focused on another stone and restarted his training, knowing that Lord Shiva wasn't going to accept his results unless he mastered destroying even the most complex concepts, such as the memories straight out of a person's mind. That's where the fun begins. 300 years later. It's time. Felix uttered with a peaceful expression. Felix had invested more than 95% of the past 300 years into mastering the concept erasure palm ability and 3% on his elemental destruction range. As for the remaining 2%, it was for his rest. He fully committed himself to mastering the ability and he pulled it off in such a ground record time, even Lord Shiva was left pleased. Naturally, he hadn't completely mastered the destruction of all concepts as there were a few ones that needed more than a couple of millennia of effort, like destroying the bonds between atoms or such. But, his end results were more than enough to fulfill the end of his deal and no matter what Lord Shiva said, Felix was going out. But before that, he still needed to ascend to a deity, which meant giving up on either lightning or gemstone etched abilities to kick off the 7th bloodline replacement. So, what did you decide? Asna asked. Felix had plenty of time to finalize his decision. In the end, he came to the rational decision that emotions and sentiments shouldn't be involved in such a big matter. Lightning quick reflexes. Felix exhaled deeply. Good choice. Thor smiled in approval. Felix already had mastered the passive on his own, which meant it had to be removed even if he was going to lose the lightning absorber's mutation. As much as it pained Felix to come to this conclusion, he knew that his master would beat him to a pulp if he picked the crystallization beam. As I mentioned before, you can choose to remove my bloodline by taking away size manipulation and replacing it with lightning quick reflexes. J.A. Ermungandr informed, this way, you can replace the weakest bloodline in your path in addition to keeping Thor's mutation. I have told you that's making things too messy in his DNA as I can't remove and stitch whenever I desire without risks. Lady Sphinx shot down his idea. I am already going to replace his void immunity with void domain in addition to taking out an entire portion of his DNA to leave space. This is more than enough to cause anyone's DNA to collapse, and if I wasn't confident in my genes manipulation, I wouldn't have dared to touch this. But, it doesn't mean that I can do whatever I want. Fine, I will drop it. J.A. Ermungandr waved his hand in defeat. His idea was quite smart since both Thor and J.A. Ermungandr's ultimate abilities were size manipulation. This ensured that Felix would obtain as many benefits as possible from the process. However, it was too complicated and Lady Sphinx had no interest in endangering Felix's life by being greedy for more benefits. The process was already complicated enough. So, now to the big question. Candace asked with a tone of anticipation, what bloodline have you chosen to conclude your path with? 1335 The favor from a while back. I am still as lost as ever. Felix smiled wryly. Felix never announced his decision on his last bloodline due to the choices expanding immensely compared to the last time. During his sixth replacement, he decided between the destruction element and the vibration element, but now that he knew about the free limited manipulation after becoming an origin bloodliner, this made him realize that he could pick even alive primogenitors. In other words, he could even use any of the Darkin's bloodlines and even the alive elemental lord's bloodlines. There was only one issue with the latter. He still needed to obtain permission, and it was doubtful that death, life, time, illusion, and creation primogenitors would allow him to get their elemental domain. The most ideal bloodline to choose must be related to the mental, such as darkness, charm, sound, illusion, and even vibration. Asna disclosed, you already have offense, defense, mobility, and flexibility covered. The only thing lacking is a bloodline capable of helping you toughen your mental defenses and attacks to a deity level. I know. Felix nodded. While the list seemed to have blown out to tens of bloodlines, Felix had to eliminate any element that conflicted with one of his elements. For example, he couldn't use Rock's bloodline since he had no need for wind manipulation at his current strength. Light manipulation was also out of the discussion since the elemental manipulation was lost, and possibly the only method to get it back was by finding another egg. Even awakening Amaterasu through filtering his descendants' bloodlines was useless since he didn't have the manipulation to give out anymore. Charm is out of the question as Kumiho will never give me permission, and it's best to not add another primogenitor enemy by going for it forcefully. Plus, I can't see myself using charm abilities. Felix knocked down his options. Darkness is a valid option. Wendigo is known to be in the top 5 strongest mentalists in the universe. Also, I don't need to worry about his permission. But, the darkness element is quite limited in the mental capacity. Thor clarified, Wendigo is the one who made the darkness element be feared in terms of mental warfare, which means you won't be able to reach the same height as him without his teachings. Well, I don't think there is much of an option here. Felix sighed, I don't have time to find ways to get my hands on vibration primogenitor's bloodline when you told me that she died billions of years ago without leaving any descendant behind. The illusion element is also out of the picture since the illusion primogenitor is still alive and won't give me permission to use it. When Felix was given the option to choose between destruction and vibration, at that moment, he had all the time in the world to invest in finding out about the vibration primogenitor's bloodline. Whether he failed or succeeded, it didn't matter much. But now? He couldn't afford such luxury when Lucifer was running a rampage in his territory. I guess darkness it is. Asna cursed under her breath, I still don't like the thought of you sharing that bastard's bloodline. Neither do I, but I have to be strong in all departments before I meet with the Darkins. Felix said with a cold tone, I can't give them a single chance to win. Felix knew that becoming a deity didn't entail that he would be able to kill the Darkins, it simply meant being finally given the chance to stand before them without being played like a toy. Lucifer's score against Fenrir was enough proof. If Felix's mental fortitude was lacking, Wendigo alone would make him regret the day he decided to fight them. Just as Felix was to conclude his decision, Lady Sphinx placed her closed book on the table and shared calmly, there are no guarantees, but I can try to get you permission from Lord Loki. All. Test novel on novelben/.cm. Hey? You can. Felix raised an eyebrow in surprise. Sphinx, you will be wasting your time, you know that irritating trickster will never agree without a worthy trade. Thor shook his head. He is right. J.A. Ermungandr supported, this is giving up on his ultimate ability in addition to a limited manipulation, he will most definitely rip you off if he had an offer in mind. Don't worry, he owes me one from a while ago. Lady Sphinx showed a faint smile as she recalled her last meeting with Lord Loki. Flashback to the time of the Darkin's assassination attempt failed at Felix. How did he get his hands on a drop of my blood? Felix knitted his eyebrows, it's impossible for him to get the data from our fight in the Primogenitors event as everyone's DNA is encrypted by Queen AI. I doubt anyone possessed my blood besides Lady Sphinx. I know how they did it. Lady Sphinx spoke with an irritated tone as Lord Loki's playful expression surfaced in her mind. Who? Don't worry about it, I will handle it. The instant Lady Sphinx said this, she switched her focus to one of her many clones inside the UVR, then, she contacted Lord Loki and set up an immediate meeting with him. Lord Loki agreed to the meeting and gave her an invitation link. When she clicked on it, she was taken to a living room that exuded an air of streamlined minimalism and was dominated by holographic displays. Loki, we need to talk, Lady Sphinx said, her voice cutting through the soft ambient sounds of the futuristic living room. Unlike other elemental lords, she didn't address him formally with his title. Lord Loki, lounging in the morphing smart chair, glanced at her, his usually mischievous demeanor dimmed. What's the matter, Sphinx? He didn't bother playing tricks with her as he did with the Darkins, as he knew that it was useless against her vision. In this entire universe, there were few capable of making Lord Loki become docile and respectful. Lady Sphinx was at the top. Her truth vision made his illusion abilities obsolete entirely, which meant he could do nothing against her even if he utilized his illusion domain. You know why I am here. You crossed the line, Loki. Lady Sphinx stated with a cold tone, you handed a blood drop or something similar to the Darkins to be used to track my student's location. He blinked, feigning surprise, but Sphinx wasn't fooled. Oh, that? I assumed you knew. All's fair in love and war, right? Her eyes narrowed, a soft growl echoing in her throat. This isn't a game, Loki. You had no business in our conflict and you still shoved your nose in it. The only reason you were allowed to do as you please with this project of yours is due to your neutrality. What do you think our peers' response will be when I tell them that you have broken it? You are still as overbearing as ever, Sphinxy. Lord Loki chuckled, make your price. Lord Loki wasn't scared of Lady Sphinx, but at the same time, he really didn't want to make this bigger problem by bringing in the rest of the primogenitors. All of them knew that he was running the UVR from the shadows. The only reason they remained silent about it was because he never got involved in their business and stayed in the shadows. But, leaking private information to an enemy to tip the scale of a conflict? Not a single primogenitor would trust him, and they might even come to the conclusion that the UVR's existence wasn't in their favor anymore. Lord Loki had no intention of creating such a massive headache for himself after going through so much to prepare for the main event. First, you will never get involved again in my student's life. As for the price? I will let you know when I need something from you. Lady Sphinx narrowed her eyes. Loki, when I come to you, I expect full cooperation. No need to get serious. Lord Loki promised with a playful smile, you know that my word is dear to me. We will see about that. With that statement, Lady Sphinx left the meeting and switched her focus back to the clone in Felix's consciousness space, joining the discussion as if nothing happened. The present, back in the same living room. It's time for you to pay. Lady Sphinx stated with a calm tone. So soon? Lord Loki raised an eyebrow in surprise, don't tell me you guys have given up on killing that demon and came for my help? If so, I will be really disappointed at such an anticlimactic ending. For Lord Loki to speak like this, only meant that he was confident in his ability to end Lucifer's reign even with his peculiar immortality. No one is giving up on anything. Lady Sphinx informed, I want your permission for my student to use your bloodline in his cultivation. Oh ho? Doesn't that mean he will obtain my illusion domain? In addition to a limited illusion manipulation. Lord Loki chuckled, isn't that a bit too steep for a favor? Lady Sphinx wasn't surprised that Lord Loki knew this much, as his means of gathering information was unlike any other. If he wanted, he could easily use the consciousness link between Felix and Queen AI to invade his dreams or memories to get what he desired without anyone knowing about it. The only method to avoid all of this was to not use AP bracelet or the UVR, which was impossible with all the utilities they provide. Without them, Felix wouldn't have accomplished even 40% of his current achievements, it was just not an option at all. I told you that when I come to you, I expect full cooperation. Lady Sphinx said with a flat tone, you said your word is dear to you, now prove it and make it happen. You have come to me with such a request even when you know what I did to my descendants. Lord Loki showed a hidden sinister smile. You sure fear nothing. 1336 Learning about the UVR truth. Is that a threat? Lady Sphinx's eyes glowed with a golden hue as her pupil reflected 5 triangles stacked one inside the other, spinning in a mystifying manner. 5 triangles implied the activation of the truth vision 5th level, illusions, lies, deceptions, virtual, and anything opposite to the absolute truth get exposed before her. In Lady Sphinx's eyes, there was no virtual living room or UVR. Only utter infinite darkness with lines of green-colored data moving up and down. The only substantial thing before her was Lord Loki. I know what you did to your descendants and that's not my problem. Lady Sphinx stated coldly, all I know is that if you dared to do the same with my student, I will make sure that this project of yours will never see the light of the day again, even if it meant returning to the era of the Dark Ages again. Relax, you know that it wasn't a threat. Lord Loki flinched at his disoriented reflection in her shimmering pupils. The reflection was that of his true appearance, which he had yet to see since a very, very long time ago. Before any other primogenitor, Lord Loki was an elemental lord worthy of respect and appreciation, but he couldn't muster the same confidence before Lady Sphinx as he always felt exposed. Lady Sphinx dropped the matter and asked after her eyes returned to normal, so what's your final decision? I will agree to it under one condition. Lord Loki remarked with a stern tone, he must not get involved in my business when he finds out the truth. I can't make promises, but don't worry, we will stay out of your business. Lady Sphinx agreed. That's all I am asking. Upon receiving his confirmation, Lady Sphinx found no reason to stick around and went to deliver the good news. Meanwhile, Lord Loki was seen staring at the thousands of holographic screens in front of him with a faint smirk. I didn't think the situation would develop this way, but I am not complaining. This war is harming my endgame more than I anticipated, and it's about time it ends once and for all. I just hope that boy makes it interesting one last time with my bloodline. Lord Loki's eyes gleamed in anticipation as his boredom had been taking a toll on him lately. The fact that his main source of entertainment, the Asgardian and Darkin's conflict, was put to pause didn't make it any better. I can't believe you managed to convince him. Thor exclaimed, how did you do it? Did he really owe you such a big favor? Since Felix will be dealing with Lord Loki sooner than I anticipated, I guess it's time for him to find out about the truth. Lady Sphinx didn't feel like hiding the truth any longer, so, instead of telling them privately, she informed everyone about what happened with Lord Loki. 15 minutes later. So, the UVR's creation was supervised by Lord Loki, and he even made it happen due to merging the virtual with the illusion. Felix was left stunned by the news. We don't know how exactly he did so, but the Hive/Metal Race cooperation story to create the UVR isn't complete. Lady Sphinx said, we believe that the UVR is nothing but one giant illusion domain since it's impossible for technology to mimic exact universal laws and such at 100% realism. Though, technology was also playing a massive role to keep the UVR operational. You can consider the UVR as a realistic illusionary universe with the virtual being used to allow the people the freedom to control and shape the illusion to their desires. The fact that we need to send our consciousness to enter the UVR made it even more obvious. Felix murmured. As much as the news caught him off guard and changed his entire view of the UVR, Felix found it too logical to disapprove. The universal virtual reality sounded absurd on paper no matter how much the metal/hive race tried to sell it. However, because it worked as they stated, no one was given any other choice but to proclaim them as absolute geniuses for bringing them into a new era. While a virtual space capable of covering tens of billions of space across the universe sounded inconceivable, the same couldn't be applied to an illusion domain. The fact that people with access to their consciousness space were capable of creating their own range signal to enter the UVR was another piece of evidence. While you were sold on the idea that a hive race general consciousness technique is the reason to fix the range issue with the UVR, in reality, Lady Sphinx shared, your consciousness was merely being used to project the illusion domain on a much wider scale through its link with Queen AI. Since other dimensions cut off this connection, technology is required to connect the two dimensions with tower signals, wires, and such, before we can gain access again to the illusion domain. This was what made Queen AI too good. She could integrate with the illusion domain through her overpowered consciousness while at the same time taking advantage of most technologies. Without her to keep this balance intact, everyone would have been like lost sheep inside the illusion domain. Do you think the two empresses have known about this? Felix asked with a deep frown. If they have been lying about the UVR, God knows what else they are hiding. I don't know about that, but I am confident that Lord Loki must have fooled them as well into believing that the UVR was their creation. Lady Sphinx answered, this is the god of deception and illusion, it's not hard for him in the slightest to achieve this against mortals. Felix couldn't help but agree with her. With Lord Loki's mental manipulation prowess, even the metal race would end up falling under his lies since they still possessed a living consciousness inside their metallic vessels. As for the hive race, they might be considered one of the best mentalists in the universe as a race, but it amounted to nothing against the god of mentalists himself. Why did he do this? Why did he go this far to spread his illusion domain? Is he that bored? Or he is actually a good-natured primogenitor who wanted to bring peace upon mortals? Felix's mind was packed with more questions than answers. This sort of news had affected him more than anyone else since he was considered the Grand Supreme and possessed the majority of the voting in the 10 rulers circle. To find out that he was in fact not the top dog in his own alliance and that Lord Loki had more authority than him on Queen AI and UVR's matters in general was a massive hit. No need to mention the fact that Lord Loki had conspired against him and he was always on his radar. All we know is that he is carrying some sort of an experiment. Lady Sphinx replied, since the UVR has been up and running for over 2 million years now without much interference on his side, we believe that he has created it for his entertainment purposes. I see. Felix nodded in understanding. He had to say that if he wasn't told about Lord Loki's existence and his relation to the UVR, he would have never found out. It was enough to demonstrate that Lord Loki was seeing himself as a spectator. Honestly, even if Felix wanted to find out more about Lord Loki's motives, there was no other way but to ask him personally. It was an established fact by now that he had more authority than anyone on the UVR and Queen AI, so he could forget about getting information from these two sources. Since he has given me permission to use his bloodline, I will obtain illusion immunity and other abilities to toughen my mental fortitude. Felix stated, he won't pose much danger to me then. Lord Loki was only strong if one was affected by his illusions. With illusion immunity and Felix becoming a deity, he wouldn't be able to pull a fast one on him even if he wanted. Though, the spine can't be fixed. Asna said with an irritated tone, I feel like his two perverse eyes are putting a hole in the back of my head. All. Test novel on novel ben/cm. It can't be helped, we need his UVR and even if we told him to stop spying on us, he wouldn't go for it. Felix shook his head. As much as it irritated him to know someone was watching him 24/7, Felix had no plans on giving up on the UVR, especially, when his entire life revolved around it. Though, now that he was going to use Lord Loki's bloodline, he would at least be able to protect himself from invasive attempts to spy inside his memories, thoughts, and dreams. If it wasn't for this, he would honestly be losing his mind over this issue as no one would feel comfortable in such a f***ed-up situation. Good thing Lady Sphinx had told him about this only after securing Lord Loki's bloodline. God knows how his focus would be if he knew about it and had nothing to defend himself. By the way, doesn't this situation feel somewhat destined? Asna remarked with a look of interest. 1337 attempting the first 7th replacement. What? You know, you have been born with only 2 affinities, poison and illusion. You have started your bloodline path with poison and now you will conclude it with illusion. Asna chuckled, you even already have Lord Loki's bloodline fully extracted and have been keeping it in your spatial card for thousands of years. Felix had indeed already pushed his illusion affinity to 100% and extracted Lord Loki's bloodline from the illusion beasts. His access to those rare beasts might have been limited while he was still broke and a nobody, but with his reputation and authority rising, such a problem disappeared on its own. As for why Lord Loki's precious bloodline was spread among beasts, it was just like the other primogenitors, he also had descendants. What happened to them exactly? It seemed like that was another secret between primogenitors. I don't know, it is interesting, but destined? I am not into that crap. Felix waved his hands carelessly. It does seem poetic when you think about it. Candace agreed with a dreamy look, it's the same as you traveling to the end of the universe to search for love, but just to realize that it was near you all along. Felix rolled his eyes speechlessly as he couldn't care less about such a thing. Whatever, I am just glad my bloodline path will come to an end with all of my strength departments covered. He informed them, I will be starting my replacement process at first light. Isn't it best to take a bit more time to prepare? Asna mentioned with a concerned tone, there is no need to rush. There is a need to rush, but don't worry, I didn't make this decision on a whim. Felix comforted her with a stern look, I have been feeling ready for a very, very long time. I have no intention of postponing this any longer. If it wasn't for Lord Loki's secret throwing him off a bit, he would have done it right now and here, but he was still sensible to give himself half a day to iron down his mind before going for it. On the summit of a towering, majestic mountain, Felix's silhouette was set against the horizon, where the first blush of dawn began to pierce the amethyst veils of the morning sky. Cold winds whispered against his skin, reminding him of the elemental power of this lofty place. Lord Shiva's bloodline, known for its overwhelming destructive power, was about to be replaced with a bloodline more befitting of Felix's character. Felix had spent last night in Lady Sphinx's laboratory on the other side of the planet. It was for none other than the permanent removal of Thor's bloodline from his system. As much as Felix hated the process and despised doing that to his master, he was lucky to have Thor by his side, ensuring him that his legacy was in his lightning manipulation and not his bloodline. As long as he did right to his lightning manipulation, he should never need to worry about failing Thor's legacy. As expected of Lady Sphinx's brilliance, she had succeeded in the removal process without much trouble. Although Felix had to suffer through the removal of his lightning absorber's mutation, and the nasty feeling of weakness from losing the enhancements, everything else went well. I have lost more than 50 kbf, which was around our expectations. Felix thought to himself, this put me back to around 760 kbf. So, I need this replacement to help me get at least close to 960 kbf, and the rest can be carried on by my other dragon/devourer's cultivation systems. Read the latest stories and novelbin.com. Lady Sphinx's calculation had made her reach the conclusion that Felix would hit his desired mark, but when it came to replacement enhancement at this height, no one could really be sure. For all he knows, he might end up getting barely 150 kbf enhancement, not pushing through the infamous swamp of the last 100k. So, he was still merely hoping that all of this worked out as envisioned by his master. Phew, let's begin. Without further ado, he used a needle to draw from a medium, intricately crafted bottle and extracted a thick, shimmering liquid, seemingly existing but at the same time it didn't. This was the bloodline of Lord Loki, filled with deception and trickery. He took a deep breath, easing his heart which was pounding like a drum against his ribs. Only 20%, Felix muttered. He carefully measured out the required amount and stopped the moment he reached it. Then, he brought the needle in front of his chest. With a sense of surreal calm, Felix watched as a hairline fracture on his chest, right above his heart, began to separate painlessly akin to a fault line cutting across a once solid terrain. The natural body armor parted to expose the pulsating organs beneath. His three main hearts, the symbol of life, were unveiled in their raw, rhythmic glory. Felix ignored the other two and brought the needle closer to the crimson and robust human heart. With the same detached calmness that had marked the opening of his chest, his heart also created a tiny opening for the needle as his entire body was covered in Lord Shiva's cracks, not just his skin. Without those cracks, Felix would be hopeless to destroy his own body even if he wished. The injection was immediate and his heart accepted the new bloodline eagerly, drawing it into its chambers and pushing it out with every determined beat. Every vein in his body pulsed with the newly introduced essence. His bloodstream served as a network, a series of roads through which Lord Loki's bloodline traveled and spread, integrating with his own. This internal dance was invisible to the eyes but Felix felt every bit of it, every change and shift within him. As the process ended, his heart and chest closed just as effortlessly as they had opened. Felix closed his eyes and waited patiently for the storm to hit his body. A moment later, a bellowing scream echoed off the mountain, a raw, primal sound that sent a flock of roosting birds fluttering into the skies in panic. It was as though his blood was boiling, every vein on fire as Lord Loki's bloodline started to integrate with his DNA forcefully. He could feel the alien essence infiltrating, replacing, and intertwining with his own. This forceful integration caused drastic shifts to occur in his body as his demonic horns retracted before springing forth again, now covered in vivid light green/blue scales and with a new elegant shape. The horns were still made out of wood but the scales made it seem animalistic. His skin lightened from its signature gray, shifting and settling into a natural, pale hue. His hair, once a bold crimson, transitioned into a base of transparent light yellow, with streaks of green, brown, orange, and blue dancing within. The colors seemed to change from one place to another, making Felix's new hair seem quite mystical and illusionary. Though, this scene ended a moment later after the blood from his horns completely tainted it red again. His eyes weren't in the picture as Felix kept them closed tightly shut, unable to open them when waves of agonizing pain kept hitting him over and over again. Yet, these mutations were nothing before what happened next. The change was subtle at first, almost imperceptible. Then, small buds of texture began to appear on his skin. What was once smooth now became rough and patterned. It was akin to the texture of a lizard, speckled, and marked with a beautiful complexity. Within moments, the tiny buds grew, expanding into scales that were strikingly similar to those of a chameleon. They were ethereal and intricate, a light green blue that shimmered under the gaze of the morning sun. The scales interlocked perfectly, each one unique yet part of a larger, mesmerizing pattern that flowed over his shoulders and hips like an armor of nature. His chest remained untouched. The transition between skin and scales was seamless, like the meeting of land and sea along a beach. Asna and a few spectating tenants marveled at the way the scales shifted colors subtly, mirroring the azure sky above and the emerald grass below, a perfect balance between the tranquility of blue and the vitality of green. Just when Asna thought that was the end of Lord Loki's mutations, she raised an eyebrow after noticing a bulge arising from Felix's lower back under his constant unwilling screams. There is more. 1338 Lord Loki's mutations. A small lump formed, rapidly elongating into a slender, sinuous extension. Like a blade of grass pushing through fertile soil, a tail emerged, growing in length and girth. Its surface developed the same chameleon-like scales that adorned his shoulders and hips, the green-blue hue gleaming vibrantly under the sun's gentle touch. The tail swished and coiled, the color shifting subtly with the play of light and shadow. Even the blood covering it wasn't capable of hiding its mesmerizing gleam. Felix will definitely not be pleased with this. Asna giggled in amusement as she watched him go through the last minutes of this painful and agonizing storm. If Felix had obtained a tail mutation in the early stages of his life, then he would gladly accept it. But, at his current level, a tail mutation was no different than a cosmetic useless mutation. Alas, that's how integration with new bloodlines went, he couldn't always be lucky and get the best and finest mutations of them all every time. 15 agonizing minutes passed as Felix writhed on the rocky ground. The sun's light slowly strengthened as its rays kissed the mountaintop. Eventually, the maelstrom subsided, leaving Felix gasping for breath, his body soaked in sweat and blood. After a few moments of doing nothing but lying on the ground and trying his best to not pass out, Felix finally gave in to the exhaustion and let himself go. A few hours later, blinking into the harsh midday sunlight, Felix awoke in a roofless hut. He lay still for a moment, feeling the rays warm his newly pale skin, then slowly rose to his feet. He immediately figured out that his master had taken care of him while he was out. My hair. He breathed, pulling a few strands forward to see them better. The base color of his hair was a transparent light yellow, but it now danced with shades of green, blue, brown, and orange. The colors shifted as they caught the light, appearing as though a painter had woven a masterpiece into every living strand. This is quite trippy, he marveled, his voice filled with quiet awe. He manifested a holographic mirror and swiftly studied his reflection. His eyes, once a distinct yellow, were now a mesmerizing arctic blue while his pupils were creamy white. He leaned in closer, taking in the change. Light arctic eyes. Finally, I got a close color to my original ones. He mused aloud. His gaze then dropped to his shoulders and hips. Where there was once bare skin, there were now intricate scales, their light green-blue hue resembling a beautifully inked tattoo. Scales? He exclaimed, running his fingers over the textured skin. It's as if I've merged with a chameleon. You should look behind you. Asna giggled while covering her mouth. The moment Felix heard her teasing voice, he felt a chill course on his spine after realizing a familiar feeling in his lower back had returned. I wasn't dreaming. He turned with a frozen expression, trying to get a better look at his lower back. The sight that greeted him was something entirely unexpected, something he never thought he would see on his own body again. There, extending from his lower back, was a tail the same green-blue of his scales, shifting and glinting in the sunlight. God damn it! Felix cursed with watery eyes as he stared at his new tail coiling and uncoiling playfully. Before you start hating on it, you should know that the tail works together with the scales to give you a decent mutation. Lady Sphinx shared. What do you mean? Felix's eyes dried up immediately at the sound of that. In his eyes, as long as mutation provided a utility, he didn't give a sh*t about its appearance. The scales and the tail allow you to shapeshift into anything you desire as long as it shares the same body figure as you. Lady Sphinx mentioned. For real? It's not an illusion ability. Felix was startled. There was a massive difference between using an illusion element to shapeshift and actually doing it. Using illusion implied that the user would still feel himself to be the same, but he would appear otherwise to the others affected by the illusion. But shapeshifting would show different results to both the user and everyone else. It's half. Lady Sphinx disclosed, you wouldn't really shapeshift into another person, but just the exterior will resemble the mentioned target. I see, so it affects only my exterior appearance, which is the reason why the desired shape needs to have the same figure as me. Felix nodded in understanding. Try it, just envision any appearance in your mind and focus hard on making it happen. Okay. The moment Felix closed his eyes and went for it, he felt a new surge of power radiating from the chameleon-like scales that adorned his body and the slender tail that extended from his lower back. The tail scales started creeping across his entire body until he was fully covered from toe to head. With eyes closed, he focused on this newfound energy and willed his scales to shift, to mold his appearance to his desired target. His shoulder-length hair, once a canvas of various colors, began to shimmer, changing to a shade reminiscent of sun-kissed sand. The transformation was mesmerizing, like watching the northern lights dance across the sky. His eyes, too, began to change. The once light sky blue hue deepened and shifted, gradually adopting the golden hue of his now sandy hair. His chameleon tail twitched, reacting to the transformation. Its green-blue hue faded as its shape changed, becoming thicker, and more muscular. In place of the chameleon-like scales, a tuft of golden fur sprouted at its end. His tail now swished back and forth with a lion's might and grace. Even the gemstones embedded in his body, his horns, and the cracks were no longer to be seen. With the last traces of the chameleon disappearing, Felix stood newly transformed back into his first bloodline replacement's appearance. As Felix gazed at his reflection in the holographic mirror, he couldn't help but show a nostalgic smile. I feel like I am back to the old days. Felix chuckled as he watched his old lion's tail, swishing left and right. This is quite interesting, can you mix and match between them? Asna asked with a curious tone. Let's see. This time Felix didn't change his entire appearance but focused purely on his lion's tail and his hair color. He made the tail disappear and changed his hair back into dark red again. I guess it's more than doable. Felix smiled widely as he kept messing around with his appearance, changing his hair, eyes, and even facial features into his desired target. With more funny experiments, he found out that he could do anything as long as he remained within the confines of his human figure and he didn't try to add anything he didn't already possess, such as a limb, an eye, or something. 0 current novels on n/o/v/3l/b n.co/m. This meant he could easily hide his tail and scales if he wanted. Felix left the scales alone but removed the tail, seemingly retracting back into his body. With this mutation, it will save me the trouble of having to get another ability with the same effect. Felix uttered with a hopeful tone, let's see what passive was unlocked. Besides the known illusion immunity, Felix found out the details of a new illusion passive called Mind Fortress. When he finished reading it, he couldn't help but show a wide grin. At last, I can say my mind is an unbreakable fortress. His happiness was understandable as the passive turned the user's mind into an indestructible fortress that could be broken by only those capable of resisting the user's illusions. Don't get too happy yet. Thor warned, just because you have Lord Loki's bloodline, doesn't mean that you can create the same realistic illusions as him. Illusion's prowess depends heavily on their user and you might get away with it by using Lord Loki's abilities, but the moment you obtain his manipulation, you might fail to even trick a mortal. I understand. Felix eased his happiness. He realized that this passive would be great only while he was still using Lord Loki's abilities. Fortunately, the next stage in his path was the Origin Realm. If he pulled it off, he would obtain all of Lord Loki's unlocked abilities, which would help him greatly until he got better with his limited illusion manipulation. Now, the moment of truth. Felix took a deep breath and beamed multiple testing machines in an empty area in front of him. Without access to the UVR, he could only test his replacement enhancements in the real world. Calmly, Felix positioned himself, every sinew in his body coiling like a spring, a well of untapped power. With a swift inhalation, he drew his right fist back, feeling the weight of his power coursing through his veins. His body became a tight knot of impending destruction, his face edged with fierce determination. This was the moment when he would find out if it would be possible to become a deity in a few months or years. Then, with an explosive release of energy, he drove his fist forward, ripping through the air. The sound of his punch echoed through the field like a sonic boom, vibrating the air around him. His fist met the red pad with an ungodly force that instantly made the metal creak and groan under the impact. For a moment, it was as if time slowed. The machine shuddered, lights flashing erratically on its console as it struggled to process the scale of the impact. Then, like a star-gone supernova, the machine exploded under Felix's stunned expression. Metal shards and circuits flew in every direction, smoke and sparks billowing out in a cloud. The deafening sound of the explosion reverberated across the forest, leaving an echo of Felix's destructive power. When the dust settled, Felix stood before the smoldering remnants of what was once a state-of-the-art testing machine. His fist was unmarked, but the destruction around him bore witness to his devastating strength. At least you know now that it's above 950k. Asna commentated with a faint chuckle, knowing that the calculating limit of the machine was 950k. This is all I wanted. Felix smiled in satisfaction as he stared at his illuminating fist. In a few moments, the absorbed force faded away and his fist returned to normal, but he didn't beam another machine to finalize the calculation. The destroyed machine was the best one available to handle such intense force, and if he wanted to be precise, he had to use the ones in the UVR. You just need to hit 2 dragon marks and 1 devourer's mark to cross the 1 million limit. Candace congratulated with a delighted expression, you will be the second mortal to become a deity. If it wasn't for Lucifer, Felix would have been considered the true first mortal to break past the universal limitation and join the other side. This would have definitely warranted another reaction from the universe. I don't care about such a thing, I just want to become a deity already and show those F***ers that I am not a pushover. Felix expressed with an icy tone as he envisioned the Darkins and Lucifer. Without further ado, Felix continued testing other enhancements and he wasn't disappointed with the end results. When he was done, Felix decided to prioritize hitting the required dragon/devourer marks for the ascension over continuing his integration. This implied eating as much as possible before going into a long slumber to hasten the digestion of the elemental minerals and natural treasures. 2 dragon marks and 1 devourer's mark will take me at least 5 years even with my powerful digestion. Felix shook his head, it's still better than decades if I went for it slowly. Felix could have eaten all the collected elemental minerals and natural treasures slowly while he trained, but that would have screwed him up big time. After all, the marks enhancements were flat, and he would be wasting them if he took them before the bloodline replacement. While it seemed like he needed only 40k BF to cross the million line, in reality, it amounted to hundreds of thousands of BF in terms of difficulty. Elder Dragon using potions and whatnot to obtain 10k BF temporarily was enough proof of said difficulty. Are you planning to leave the moment you ascend to a deity? Asna asked. Yes. Felix nodded with a firm tone. Not a single second wasted. 6 years later, while Felix was still in a deep slumber. He is getting closer, I reckon he needs only 200 BF equivalent of strength before he crosses over the limit. Candace shared with an excited tone. I think he is going to sleep through the ascens. Rumble. Before Asna could finish her statement, a sudden deafening thunderclap resounded in her mind, jolting her awake. Did you hear that? Asna swiftly asked with a shocked look. Yes. Get latest oval chapters on NV, E, LBJ/N, C/M. Likewise. All of the tenants had their eyebrows raised in surprise. But how is that possible? Thor soon frowned, the universe celebrates only once, and Lucifer was the first mortal to become a deity. This was the reason Felix never heard another thunderclap even when he kept adding new elemental manipulations in his arsenal or when he succeeded in his 7th replacement. It might seem like he was the first to pull off a 7th replacement, but in reality, it was considered still a 6th replacement due to him getting rid of Thor's bloodline to empty space. Maybe, we have been misunderstanding the situation all along. J. A. Ermungandr said, we assumed that Lucifer was a mortal and became a deity, what if that wasn't the truth? You mean, he was born as a deity all along? Everyone was a bit stunned by his assumption as it was even more impossible than becoming a deity from a mortal. After all, to be born as a deity was no different than being considered a true primogenitor. It can't be the universe will never give birth to a new primogenitor unless the scale wasn't balanced. We all knew that those beings created us for their entertainment and the universe had nothing to do with that. Thor shook his head in denial. If a primogenitor had lost his elemental manipulation forever, the universe clearly demonstrated that it would take it upon itself to restore the balance by giving birth to new primogenitors as eggs. But, to give birth to a whole different primogenitor? The universe would never do that. Well, think about it. Fenrir narrowed his eyes coldly, that demon was too unique from the start and Lady Sphinx had found out that his DNA is completely different than other demons. He might actually be the primogenitor of evil, the ruler of evil energy. Evil energy is different though, it didn't exist in the first place, and without the paragon of sin's existence, there would have been no such thing. In other words, evil energy was the same as pure energy, they exist only if they were extracted from a source. For example, everyone possessed evil energy and pure energy within them, but they did absolutely nothing to them as they were considered mere abstract ideas. But, the paragon of sins had changed the whole situation by making this abstract idea into an existing energy that could alter reality. With evil energy being released everywhere and spreading akin to a wildfire, this caused pure energy to manifest on its own as an opposite force. This was clearly the doing of the universe as everything had to have an equal force to keep the balance intact. Well, it has been existing for tens of millions of years if not more. I can't see why the universe wouldn't create a new primogenitor egg to give this kind of new energy a ruler. Fenrir said. That's not possible. Asna interjected with a serious tone, the universe will never create a primogenitor for something that already has a unigen ruler above it. That's why, you don't see the seven sins primogenitor or spirits primogenitor. Those beings could do it, but not the universe. I doubt those beings have anything to do with Lucifer. In simpler terms, the universe recognizes the unigens as the original rulers of said energies, forces, laws, elements, or such. The primogenitor's existence wasn't needed in the first place, which was the reason the beings were the ones giving birth to them and not the universe. It was absolutely redundant to have a death/life unigen and create a life primogenitor and death primogenitor. As for the egg situation, as mentioned, the universe was left with no choice but to give birth to a new primogenitor to keep the lost elemental manipulation existing. If those beings and the universe had nothing to do with this leaves us with one answer. Everyone looked at each other before uttering with a solemn tone. The paragon of sins. We have always been under the assumption that she was still asleep, but what if she woke up a long time ago and merely remained on the low? The clues do suggest her involvement with Lucifer. Fenrir stated, he was always in front of the void rift, the closest thing to her slumber area. Plus, he seems to be targeting Felix specifically for some reason. He can't be after Nemo as his first impression of him seemed like he genuinely didn't know about his existence. True, if the paragon of sins was awakened after Nemo, she had plenty of chances to take care of him when he entered the void rift in her territory. But if she was awake and ignored Nemo's existence, it sounds too far-fetched. Carbuncle joined the conversation. Who would ignore taking care of their executioner and replacement at his weakest? All of this seems too complicated and the only way to find out the truth is by getting it from Lucifer. J.A. Ermungandr said as he eyed Felix who seemed to be covered in an ethereal glow, we will be getting the answer quite soon. Felix, who had no clue that he had already ascended to a deity, remained in his dreamland. While it was a dreamland, it was filled with nothing but absolute massacre with demons' heads rolling all over the place. Even during his sleep, Felix wanted nothing more than to end this demonic plague and save his people. Chapter 1340. 5 months later in the SG Alliance/S territory. Once a picturesque settlement, now a tragic tableau of ruin and despair, a goblin town lay gutted under the ruthless onslaught of a demon squad led by a powerful demon captain. The once cobblestone streets, host to the cheer of daily life, were strewn with debris and the shards of a life that was. The once charming houses, their facades boasting intricate woodwork, were nothing more than smoldering husks, skeletal remnants of what they used to be. The town/S central square, once a bustling hub of chatter and laughter, was eerily silent save for the intermittent echoes of destruction. Swooping low in the twilight sky, a flight of demons descended upon the town. Their monstrous forms were silhouetted against the dull red glow of the setting sun, their ghastly wings spreading a shadow of dread. The leader, massive and terrifying, stood at the forefront, his scarred countenance a testament to countless battles. Their eyes glowed with an unholy light, casting a spectral glow on the town/S ruins, adding a sinister overtone to the devastation. I can smell purities hiding here. Captain Gorgle licked his busted open lips with a revolting black tongue as he scanned the eerie silent ruined town. Magalai/S squad has rampaged through here, I doubt they would have left a single soul around. His subordinate mentioned. That retard/S invasions are always sloppy as he focuses on bigger group targets. Captain Gorgle sneered, for such a small town, he must have passed by it and didn't care about searching it thoroughly. Now, spread out and find me some purities to feast on. Without any more questions, the demons rampaged through the town, leaving behind them a chaotic symphony of destruction, their monstrous forms backlit by the raging fires. Thud. 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 Deep in an underground cave, huddled in fear, what remained of the town folks could hear the echoes of their monstrous destruction. The village chief, Agner, a weathered short goblin with lines of worry etched on his face, tried to maintain an air of calm. Hush, now, he whispered to the trembling children around him, their wide eyes reflecting the dim light of the underground chamber. We must be quiet, we must be strong. His words were for himself as much as for the rest of them. He was no warrior, but he was their leader, and he had a responsibility to uphold. Alas, when demons seek out purities out of hunger, they leave nothing unturned. Captain, we found a closed well buried under a mountain of rubble. Gorgle/S lips curled into a grotesque smile, revealing rows of jagged teeth. Is that so? He walked towards the well and found out that his squad was already digging the rubble around it, exposing it in the open. When it was fully exposed, they pushed the lid away and Gorgle uttered with a playful tone, come out, little goblins, or I/LL fill your hidey hole with my little gift. A swirling mass of red mist gathered in his palm, clearly threatening to fill the entire underground cave with evil energy. We are done for. Below, Agner felt a chill run down his spine. The rumble of the demon/S voice resonated with a terrifying promise. The adults exchanged despairing glances while the children huddled closer, their whimpering whispers echoing in the dank enclosure. Find a way to get them out without collapsing the ground. We don't/T need them dead. Captain Gorgle retracted his hand as he wanted to eat the refuges/purities, not kill or demonize them. So, he needed them well and alive. Just as his squad started to dig around the well, a figure appeared next to Captain Gorgle. The figure was tall and imposing, with a calm but determined gaze. It was Felix in his Lord Shiva/S demonic appearance. You really can/T spare anyone? Felix said with a flat tone. Captain Gorgle felt a shiver coursing down his spine the moment he heard this familiar voice. A voice that all demons were forced to listen to million times under the orders of the Demon King in hopes of recognizing him and telling their king about his location. Alas, just as Captain Gorgle wanted to look to the side and confirm Felix/S identity, he found himself unable to move an inch. It can/T be, /. His heartbeats accelerated in agitation and fear while his eyes kept dancing in their sockets. Captain. When his subordinates noticed that their captain was awfully quiet, they turned around and were stunned by the sight of him frozen in place while Felix was standing next to him with an expressionless look. Without a word, Felix began to walk towards the well, his every step measured and calm. Each stride seemed to resonate with an ethereal force that seemed out of this world. The air around him began to vibrate, a soft, low hum that was almost a whisper. The demons watched Felix_S approach, their monstrous eyes narrowed in anticipation of an impending battle. But Felix did not raise his fists. Instead, he simply walked, his gaze steady, and an aura of tranquility radiating from him. However, this tranquility masked an overwhelming spiritual pressure. Felix, a serene vessel for a storm of spiritual power, began to unleash it, directing it toward the demons. A subtle shift in the atmosphere marked the onset of this unseen assault. The demons staggered, clutching their heads as they felt a force rippling through them. It was not a physical force, it was something much deeper, something that tore at their very souls. No. Stop. Argh. Panic flashed in their monstrous eyes as they realized what was happening. Felix_S spiritual pressure, a force as serene as it was deadly, was unweaving the fabric of their existence. Their roars of defiance turned into wails of anguish as their souls were pulled apart, thread by thread, each disintegration a silent testament to Felix_S power. The spiritual pressure intensified with every step Felix took. The demons around him disintegrated, their monstrous forms collapsing into nothingness. By the time Felix reached the well, not a single demon stood. Even Captain Gorgle suffered from the same fate. This was the power of spiritual pressure at a deity level, the power to extinguish the life of anyone below a deity level through a mere glance. The moment Felix ascended to a deity level and embarked on his journey across the SG Alliance_S territory, he was never forced to use anything besides it. Felix peered into the well before jumping inside of it. When he landed on the ground, he walked for a short while until his serene gaze met the wide-eyed stares of the goblins below. "Fear not," he said, his gentle voice echoing in the cave, "the demons are gone." "Grand Supreme." Agner uttered with a look of disbelief the moment Felix came under a dim-lighted crystal in the ceiling and showed his demonic appearance. While his appearance would have scared children straight, not a single goblin reacted like that. All of them had their expression turned from utter despair into instant relief, like their lives would never be threatened from this moment on. It was expected, as Felix_S face was the most memorized one in the entire universe and no one with access to the UVR could mistake him. It was like mistaking one own country_S king. "Let_S go, I have my spaceship prepared." Felix showed a peaceful smile to ease their worries even more. Without questions asked, Agner and his people followed Felix back to the surface. All of them knew that demons wouldn't bother acting this nice with them, especially when they were one of the least threatening races. The moment they emerged on the other side, the first thing that came into their view was their absolutely demolished homes. The children sniffled quietly while the adults shared depressed looks. Felix neither spoke nor comforted them about this, he merely pointed his finger at the sky and said, "This will be your home for a little while." Huddled together, the goblins lifted their heads and stared in awe at an enormous vessel, a symbol of salvation after a long nightmare. The Eternal Nautilus. Some time later, the goblins began their ascent into the spacecraft. Their small, green forms scurried up the boarding ramps, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and wonder. Each carried a bag containing the remnants of their former lives, a reminder of the homes they were forced to abandon. What? How? Upon entering the spaceship, the goblins were met with an overwhelming sight. The interior of the Eternal Nautilus was a sprawling metropolis in itself. Buildings, streets, parks, and even rivers, all recreated under the artificial lights of the spaceship, stretched as far as the eye could see. It was a microcosm of the universe, filled with tens of millions of refugees from different races, up-to-date DFRM no/v/e/lb/i.n.c/o/m. The goblins passed by groups of diverse beings, each with their unique physical traits and attire. There were elves, witches, dwarves, orcs, goblins, spirit foxes, and even humans. Yet, amidst their differences, they shared a common reality: they were all refugees, survivors of planetary invasions, their homes lost to the marauding demons. They were all here, aboard the Eternal Nautilus, under the protection of Felix. The refugees lived in harmony for more than 4 months now under Felix_S blessings after being saved by him. The moment Felix woke up from his slumber and realized that he had ascended into a deity, he kept his word and departed from the Elementals galaxy immediately. He didn't even spend a minute testing out his new enhanced reaction speed and potent spiritual pressure. Instead of going straight into the Milky Way galaxy or going after his enemies, he picked the longest path that would ensure he saved as many citizens as possible. Right now, he had picked more than 15 million random refuges after clearing up tens of invaded solar systems. He prioritized saving refuges more than killing demons since he knew that it was possible to reverse the demonization process. He might not actively hunt them down, but he didn't show mercy in the slightest to anyone that fell in his path. Obviously, his actions could never remain hidden for long as he was making too much of a splash. This was exactly what Felix wanted. "Lord Lucifer, the target is cleaning up Goblus planet and saving its refugees," Lakaka informed with an icy tone. "If we moved now, we might be able to intercept him on his next planet. It_s about time we have that destined meeting of ours. Open up the portal." Lucifer expressed with a faint cold smile as he stood up from his throne. "Can we come too, _? We would like to watch our Lord_s greatness as he stomps down on that pest." Previous Green and Black Dragon clans _heads requested with a hopeful tone as they kneeled at the side of the throne. "I am not going to kill him, but you can come and watch." Lucifer permitted nonchalantly and walked through the portal with the eager 2 dragons and Lakaka behind him. Some time later, the planet's blood-red sky, shot through with streaks of baleful violet, boiled with demonic energy. Crumbled buildings loomed over vacant streets, while strange, monstrous creatures prowled amongst the wreckage, their growls and roars echoing eerily. From the heart of this chaos, malevolent grey energy swirled, growing larger and denser until it ripped open a portal of shimmering whiteness. Emerging from this dimensional rift was Lucifer, wrapped in his sable cloak, his eyes glowing with a cold and wicked light. Behind him, 3 imposing figures emerged, Lakaka and the previous 2 dragon clan heads. Lucifer had demonized many worthy leaders and fighters from the SG Alliance and already had capable subordinates under him, but he still used those 3 most often as they proved to be much greater than everyone else. It was to be expected as the 3 of them were all in the top 10 strongest fighters in the Alliance. "I can already smell his existence," Lucifer said after taking a deep breath with a look of pure bliss. Igos and the other two could only act ignorant at their lord's sus comments and actions toward Felix. They were pretty used to it by now. He is currently evacuating the refugees in his spaceship. Lakaka coughed. Good, good, let's greet him properly. Lucifer broke into a cloud of evil energy and took off toward the mentioned location. It was quite nearby, so he didn't need to use another portal. Lakaka and the dragon's heads chased after him with looks filled with anticipation. Standing amidst a ruined city was Felix, his golden eyes reflecting the chaos around him as he was helping thousands of mixed citizens ascend multiple small spaceships to deliver them to the eternal Nautilus. They are here, Felix uttered calmly without bothering to even turn his head. He didn't need to, as he had gotten familiar with his wisdom eye to the point it allowed him to sense any evil thoughts targeting him from thousands of kilometers. Candace, take care of the evacuation. Felix ordered. Leave it to me. Felix turned around and teleported in the blink of an eye under the eyes of the refugees, but no one felt unsafe or caused trouble as Candace was even scarier than him. When Felix reappeared in the middle of nowhere, he looked at the rushing three evil auras and waved his hand in a gentle manner, seemingly releasing a transparent ethereal glow around him. Then, he retracted it and waited patiently for the guests. His actions were somewhat bizarre, but thankfully, no one was near to see him. It didn't take even a couple of seconds before Lucifer and his subordinates landed in front of him. Felix's gaze hardened when he saw Lucifer manifest from a cloud of evil energy. Lucifer, he greeted, his voice echoing through the deserted farming field, a challenge ringing clear. Lucifer raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a cruel smile. Felix, he responded, his voice a poisonous whisper, our destinies have finally clashed. The tension between the two was palpable, one could say a cosmic struggle between the elements and the force that sought to corrupt them. You started this whole mess for the sake of meeting me, well, I am here. Felix called with a cold tone, what do you have to say? Look at this vermin, thinking himself worthy to make our lord explain his thoughts. Igos sneered, puffing out corrupted dark red flames from his nostrils. He thinks his authority as a grand supreme amount to anything here. Lakaka mocked, you should have stayed hiding. Felix didn't even bother to glance in their direction. He focused on Lucifer and asked with a flat tone, you should have told me you will bring cheerleaders with you. You. Mother Asterisker. Please lord. Give us permission to kill him. Even when he wasn't trying, Felix's words cut through their pride like it was a piece of paper. After all, they were the highest authoritative figures in the alliance before they had gotten demonized. Although they became docile and obsessively loyal to Lucifer, their original pride was still intact. Alas, they might be loyal to Lucifer, but he saw them as mere bugs under his command. Kill him? You aren't worthy to lick his shoes. Lucifer eyed them coldly, now, shut your damn mouths and wait silently at the side. All of them felt hot blood rush to their faces in shame as they didn't expect their lord to side with Felix and humiliate them in front of their mortal enemy. Sadly, they couldn't open their mouths and defy Lucifer's orders. I was always curious, how can you make your demonized subjects loyal to this degree? Felix inquired. The sight of those three prideful authoritative figures being subdued like pets was too weird for him, especially when he knew that demons were individualists without an ounce of loyalty to anyone but themselves and they needed soul contracts to trust each other. Lucifer chuckled as he walked next to Lakaka and started patting him on the head without him daring to utter a single complaint. It's simple really, people are slaves to evil energy and evil energy is a slave to me. Lucifer smiled. How is that possible? Felix frowned, finding it hard to believe his answer. It was understandable as it was the same as him saying that he had absolute control over evil energy instead of bending and wielding it to his desire. There was a massive difference. It's possible if you are evil energy itself. Before Felix could react to this statement, Lucifer clapped his hands twice, I didn't come here to chit-chat on such useless matters. I have waited too long for this moment, and I can't wait another second. The moment he finished talking, Lucifer pointed his finger at Felix and released his potent spiritual pressure freely, causing a dust storm to emerge around him, making him seem like he was surrounded by a transparent aura. Haha. It's happening. Let's see how cocky you will be after this. Lakaka and the others had gotten energized at the notion of Felix getting flattened to the ground through their lord's spiritual pressure. Forgive me for this, but I need you standing still during the ascension process. Lucifer gave a noble apology as he pointed his finger at the expressionless Felix. Whoosh. Whoosh. In a heart-stopping moment, both released their attacks simultaneously, two colossal waves of spiritual pressure surging toward each other. The resulting collision was cataclysmic. The very air rippled, a shockwave of energy radiating from the epicenter. The planet seemed to have quaked beneath them, the sky above them roared, and a brilliant kaleidoscope of white and dark light painted an extraordinary tableau against the red backdrop. Their energies were evenly matched, each fighting for dominance in this chaotic dance of power, a stunning testament to their respective strengths. Impossible. How can this be? What the hell? This wasn't the sight Lakaka and the dragons' heads had expected, leaving them staring at the evenly spiritual clash with mouths wide open. They knew that their lord's spiritual pressure was on a primogenitor's level, which made them incapable of believing what their eyes were feeding them. The implications were just too much for them to accept. Meanwhile, Lucifer showed the exact opposite reaction. Immediately after both spiritual pressures negated each other, he broke into a laughing spree. Ha 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 ha. As expected of my other half. I would have been disappointed if you haven't already reached this stage. You thought I will be that foolish to appear before you without becoming a deity first. Felix said with a flat tone. My fault, I honestly thought that you wouldn't remain hiding for long when your people were suffering across the entire universe. Lucifer smiled, but don't overthink this, you being a deity only made this a bit more interesting. We shall see. Felix's power roared to life, his first ability forming a sphere of sparkling purplish water around Lucifer, who grinned at the display. But then, Felix transmuted the water into countless ice spears. With a flick of his wrist, they shot toward Lucifer. Lucifer was more than ready as he had been dealing with ice attacks for a long while now. He twisted his dark power, corrupting the incoming ice spears, one by one, they transformed, twisting into nightmarish, obsidian shards that redirected back towards Felix. Felix acted quickly. He conjured a shield of white adamantine. The corrupted shards clashed against his defense, resulting in a resonating explosion of shattered ice and dark energy. Unfazed, Felix quickly moved to his next spell. Rumble. With a flick of his hand and suddenly a bolt of lightning split the heavens, its brilliance a stark contrast to the pallid moonlight. The air was alit with static energy, a palpable tension buzzing between the combatants. Is this a joke? Lucifer laughed, his voice a dissonant melody against the resounding thunder, his power thrummed in response, corrupting the bolt into a snake of seething darkness, reversing its trajectory towards Felix. In a brilliant flash, Felix invoked the lesser time spell, Temporal Freeze. Time itself bowed to his will as the lethal bolt of lightning hung suspended in midair, its deadly dance stilled by the spell's unyielding grasp. He then used a spatial spell to shift the frozen bolt away, hurling it into the moonlit horizon. You even mastered time spells? You are making me want you more and more. Lucifer licked his lips into a starving hyena, seemingly unafraid in the slightest by Felix's time spells. It was understandable as his reaction speed would make it extremely difficult to get ensnared by a time spell unless Felix was capable of activating it in less than 0.0001 seconds. Meanwhile, Fenrir's ultimate ability was undodgeable as it affected an entire planet in less than a few seconds. This is nothing. Felix changed the rules of engagement. In the next instant, Felix summoned an enormous wave of water, a liquid wall racing toward Lucifer. With the water, he mixed his most potent poison, true poison, turning the massive surge into a deadly torrent. But Lucifer merely chuckled, he twisted his energy, corrupting the poison within the water, turning it harmless. If this is all you can offer, then this will end faster than I anticipated. Lucifer commentated as he manifested a magnificent dimension of potent sinister power source above him. Get latest oval ch pictures on NV.E.LBJ/N.C/M. Then, without an ounce of hesitation, he transformed the dimension into millions of disgusting living leeches and sent them in the direction of his enemy. With a subtle shift in his stance, Felix turned to face the swarm of living leeches, a nauseating mass birthed from corrupted energy. Then, with a decisive thrust forward of his palm, he activated Concept Erasure. In an instant, the power source leeches were met by a crimson palm manifested of out-destruction energy, their existence challenged by the counterforce of Felix's ability. One by one, millions of leeches disintegrated, their essence erased from reality, their threat neutralized by the absolute power of Felix's palm, leaving nothing behind but the echoes of their malevolent hisses. You do not seem to get it. Felix stated calmly as he eyed Lucifer, the only thing you had over me was spiritual pressure and reaction speed, but now? You should feel grateful I haven't ended this fight in the first second. So, drop your baseless pride and answer my question. Why are you coming after me? Chapter 1342 The Divine Ascension. Destruction Manipulation, hey. Lucifer didn't /T seem too worried even when he saw his evil energy getting erased from existence. This piqued Felix /S intrigue a little, knowing that he was either putting a front or he truly wasn't /T bothered with destruction abilities. Let /S see if he is putting a front or not, /. Felix struck first, his body radiating a crimson hue that pulsed with destructive energy. The air around him warped, and the very ground beneath his feet cracked and split under the sheer power of his presence. With a swift movement, he channeled his energy into a concentrated crimson beam of destruction aimed straight at Lucifer. Lucifer met the assault with a wicked smile, his form rippling as he summoned his own power. But his focus wasn't /T on Felix /S physical attack, instead, his eyes glinted ominously as he reached out with his insidious energy, seeking the seed of darkness he knew resided within Felix. The destructive beam hit Lucifer, its power so tremendous it tore through the field and carved a deep scar into the earth. But Lucifer was unfazed. His own form flickered for a moment before returning to its menacing solidity as the beam had gone through him. /Hum. Meanwhile, Felix could feel a pull, a gnawing emptiness at his core while his mind started to be filled with nothing but evil thoughts. He gasped as he finally realized that was Lucifer /S source of confidence. Lucifer was trying to tap into Felix /S residing evil energy and control him with it. You see, in this universe, there is no form that /S completely pure and holy. Lucifer smiled calmly. Even when I lost countless times against Fenrir, I never used this against him because I feared that it will scare you for good. You. Felix /S knees buckled slightly, but he resisted the crippling effect, gritting his teeth as he tried to sever Lucifer /S connection. Drawing from the tumultuous whirlwind of Felix /S hatred, Lucifer /S features contorted, mirroring the unspoken malevolence brewing within the latter. His aura seemed to pulsate in rhythm with the chaos that Felix held in his heart, growing more potent with every cruel thought and negative emotion that surfaced within him. With a wicked grin, Lucifer reached out, his hand an extension of the shadow that plagued Felix /S soul. The temperature seemed to drop to an icy chill as his spectral fingers brushed against Felix /S soul, stirring pent-up resentments, grievances, and evil intentions. The hatred that had lain dormant began to resonate, a loathsome symphony that echoed throughout Felix /S psyche. This evil energy, born of the darkest corners of Felix /S mind, manifested as a tangible force. An unsettling wind picked up, swirling around them, the malicious energy taking form and weaving into an intricate matrix of paralyzing chains. These chains of pure maleficence enveloped Felix, their cold touch a stark reminder of the horrors buried deep within him. The shadowy chains, forged from the darkest aspects of his soul, bound Felix in place, freezing him with a terror he /D never known before. His limbs grew rigid, his heartbeat staggered, and his mind clouded. Every breath he took was a struggle, every blink was a monumental effort. He was paralyzed, trapped in his personal nightmare. Lucifer simply stood before him, the puppeteer manipulating the marionette, a cruel smirk playing on his lips as Felix /S own hatred and negativity danced obediently on his strings, leaving him imprisoned in a paralyzing dread of his own creation. Lucifer appeared right in front of Felix whose murderous eyes seemed to be bleeding with dark blood. Now, do you understand? Deity or not, having destruction abilities or not, nothing can help you against me when you can /T even control your own evil side. Lucifer smiled as he caressed Felix /S frozen chin, that /S why I was born to take over your body as you don't /T deserve it. Felix wanted to respond, but it seemed like he couldn't /T muster even a rational thought in his mind. It was like he had gotten demonized, but at the same time, he didn't /T. Just relax and enjoy my divine ascension. In a dramatic display of otherworldly power, Lucifer /S form began to dissolve, fragmenting into a cloud of sinister energy. The sinister light that had once defined his ethereal form now broke free, transforming into a mass of swirling dark energy that seemed to distort the very fabric of reality around it. Each particle of this malevolent energy was a fragment of his consciousness, brimming with an insatiable hunger for domination. With a chilling wind heralding its approach, the swirling cloud began to seep into Felix, merging with him on a fundamental level. It was an invasion not of the body, but of the soul, a perversion of the sanctity of consciousness. Felix could feel the intruder within him, the dark energy infusing his being. His already clouded thoughts were more pressed by the malicious intent of this foreign entity. A war ignited within Felix, a struggle for control between his own consciousness and the invading consciousness of Lucifer. Both of them manifested within the consciousness space and faced each other with no one around them, standing on top of the peaceful consciousness ocean. Don't /T bother fighting, you can /T defeat me when you are losing to yourself. Lucifer advised with good intentions as he eyed the darkened Felix. He seemed barely capable of standing as his knees kept shaking while his facial features were twisted like he was amidst an internal struggle. If Lucifer hadn't /T turned Felix /S own hatred and negative thoughts against him, this fight would have been a clash of two titans within the confines of a single soul, a battle as intense as it was intimate. Alas! Felix tried his very best, his thoughts wrestling with the darkness, his will trying to keep his soul from being swallowed by the abyss. But Lucifer /S consciousness was an unrelenting storm. Each moment of resistance from Felix was met with a flood of darkness, drowning his will with every encounter. Gradually, the malevolent energy consumed Felix, the vestiges of his consciousness dwindling before the onslaught of evil. No. With the final vestiges of Felix /S resistance extinguished, Lucifer claimed victory. He had not merely dominated Felix /S soul but had taken complete control, a chilling testament to his indomitable power. As Lucifer assimilated the remnants of Felix /S consciousness, a new entity was born. The man that had been Felix was no more, his physical form was now a mere vessel for the devil himself. Rumble rumble. At this moment of devilish ascension, the universe seemed to respond to the cosmic shift. The calm stillness of the night was shattered as the heavens let out a series of thunderclaps, each one more resounding than the last. It was as if the cosmos was acknowledging this perverse event with a display of primal power. Thunder echoed through the vast expanse of space, a symphony of nature that was paradoxically somber and celebratory. Lightning danced across the firmament, illuminating the night sky in an awe-inspiring spectacle. It was a tribute to the ascension of the unholy, a sign that a new power had taken hold in the universe. The celestial tribute ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving behind an eerie silence that spoke volumes of the change that had occurred. You can celebrate my ascension all you want, but from this moment on, the universe is mine. Lucifer laughed out loud with his head tilted towards the heavens, seemingly challenging the cosmos and the entity managing it. Lord. Lakaka inquired with a confused tone as he eyed the new /Lucifer /appearance. Di's cover updated novels on n.o.v/e/lbin.co. His hair, already a vivid crimson, lengthened dramatically, cascading down to his waist like a waterfall of blood. Each strand pulsed with dark energy. The intense red was reminiscent of the dying embers of a destructive fire, promising danger and destruction. His skin underwent a stark change, turning as dark as the abyss, an obsidian black that seemed to swallow the surrounding light. The darkness of his skin was so profound that it appeared to distort the space around him, blurring the lines between the physical and the spiritual. Emerging from his forehead, two enormous horns spiraled upwards. Each one was a meter in length, towering above him like ancient monoliths, jagged and menacing. Their formidable appearance served as a reminder of his demonic origins, and the power he now wielded. And then there were his wings. They sprouted from his back, a pair of shadowy extensions that seemed more substantial than spectral. Each feather was as dark as his skin, their edges sharp and menacing. A divine glow, a perverse parody of heavenly radiance, surrounded him. This was no angelic halo, but a tangible aura of nefarious energy. The darkness that had once been confined to Lucifer /S form now radiated outwards, a clear proclamation of his unholy ascension. The new Lucifer, having fully taken over Felix, stood tall and daunting. His mere presence seemed to command submission, a symbol of the darkness that had triumphed over the light. I am no longer Lucifer. Lucifer turned to his subjects and announced with an overbearing tone, from this moment onward, you shall address me as the firstborn demon god. Demon god. Demon god. Lakaka and his partners knelt immediately with a deep sense of reverence burning in their chests. They could feel the divine emitting from him, and they wanted nothing but to bath in it and share this glorious moment with him. Now, excuse me, but I have a universe to conquer. Lucifer flapped his wings once and disappeared out of existence, leaving everything behind. Rho Alpha D Alpha N Nu Om. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. 1343 The Universal Conquest. As Lucifer, reborn and ascended, began his universal rampage, the cosmos resonated with his sinister, indomitable presence. New rise at n/vel/b/i/n.co. With Felix's ultimate abilities, the ascension enhancement, and his original gifts, he seemed absolutely unstoppable. He increased his size to that of celestial bodies using size manipulation ultimate ability, causing each step he took to echo across the void of space with the frightening tune of his power. The crimson-haired titan traveled between celestial bodies with terrifying ease, his demonic form wreathed in an unholy aura. With a mere sweep of his hand, he released unfathomable levels of evil energy that engulfed planets and sucked the last drop of purity from them. This is the good stuff. Lucifer enjoyed the sensation very much as those purities were capable of enhancing his strength in all departments. Unlike other demons, he wasn't affected by petty amounts, but devouring purities from celestial bodies whether populated or not was a different matter entirely. His power, once merely a potent force, kept growing exponentially with each feast. When he was done with planets, he moved to stars, leaving them dim in his wake, their energy sapped to the limit. News of Lucifer's devastating conquest reverberated across the universe, eventually reaching the primogenitors. Together, they confronted Lucifer, their combined power threatening to shake the very cosmos. However, the reborn demon lord, now endowed with unparalleled strength, stood his ground. The ensuing clash was cataclysmic, a tempest of clashing powers that twisted and warped the surrounding universe. One by one, the primogenitors fell before Lucifer's unstoppable might. Lord Osiris, with his power over mortality, was reduced to dust. Lord Quetzalcoatl, a symbol of life and growth, wilted and decayed under Lucifer's touch. Lady Sphinx crumbled, grains dispersing into the endless void. Fenrir's chilling form melted away, and Lady Yggdrasil's verdant life force withered and browned. With each defeat, Lucifer grew stronger, their fallen essences absorbed and integrated into his own, the universe trembled under his might as he claimed dominion over all. In time, the cosmos fell under Lucifer's ironclad rule, its countless celestial bodies bending to his indomitable will. His conquest was complete, and the universe was turned into his kingdom, a realm of darkness presided over by a monarch of unparalleled might, Lucifer, the ascended demon god. As Lucifer finally decided to take a break and sit on his throne to enjoy the fruits of his labor, memories of the past war-filled millennials surfaced in his mind. This happened exactly the same as my mother told me. Lucifer showed a pleased smile. The moment I merge with my other half and ascend to my godhood, not a single being would be able to stop me. I just didn't expect those self-proclaimed gods to be slain so easily. Lucifer sneered, what a joke. It took him merely a few thousand years to completely conquer the universe and enslave everyone on it. With him sucking purities out of millions of celestial bodies, primogenitors, and trillions of innocent lives, the universe might have been turned a bit quieter, but his strength could be said to have reached the final barrier, the barrier between a primogenitor and a unigen. With Lucifer's insane ambition, there was no way he was going to settle down like this for the rest of his life. I will be the true owner of the universe only after I deal with its guardians. Lucifer smiled coldly. Although his confidence was brimming, Lucifer still understood that unigens were a different entity than primogenitors and he needed help from his mother to break past that wall. So, after relaxing for less than a couple of days, Lucifer embarked on a journey back to the darkness well. Mother, as you have seen, I haven't disappointed you, the universe is now ours. Lucifer said with a caring tone, something he never demonstrated to anyone before. Even more, he was sitting in a meditation position with his head lowered in respect before the darkness well. Very good, my son, very good. His mother praised him with a proud tone, making Lucifer feel a tint of warmness in his frozen solid heart. But I still think this isn't over yet. Lucifer stated coldly, I have done nothing but eradicate the primogenitor's pests, which the universe didn't want in the first place. I feel like the only way to truly rule over the universe is by getting rid of the guardians of the laws. That's not easy. His mother advised, the guardians of laws are considered immortal beings for a reason. Even if you killed them, the universe would give birth to new ones in time. With their memories aligning together with their past selves, they will come for you. It doesn't matter, I can just kill them again and keep killing them until the universe decides to bestow me with the freedom to rule it to maintain its integrity. Lucifer requested, but to do that, I need to find out a way to break past the unigens barrier and become as strong as them. Unfortunately, that's impossible. His mother said. You always said that there is nothing as impossible. Lucifer frowned. I lied. But you never lied to me, you feel that's beneath you. Lucifer's frown deepened, what happened to you, mother? The voice from the other side kept to itself for a long while, which made Lucifer even more agitated and confused about the situation. Crack. Crack. The instant a single thought of suspicion had taken root in his mind, glass-shattering noise echoed in his mind like mirrors falling on the ground. When he started looking around him, the mighty halls of his conquered kingdom seemed to have cracks on them. The infinite cosmos seemed so close to him like he was merely sitting in a four-dimensional glass cube with cracks on its walls. What the hell is going on? A strange dread gripped him, an icy shiver curling around his heart. The universe seemed to sway, spinning out of control. His realm, his victory, his conquest, everything wavered like a mirage in the scorching desert heat. It was as if reality itself was shattering, breaking apart under the immense weight of his pride. Then it happened. The illusion that was his conquest crumbled into dust, and reality crashed down around him. The feeling was akin to plunging from the highest pinnacle of celestial glory into the coldest abyss of mortal despair. The palatial throne room with its grotesque grandeur, the unending sea of his damned followers, the primogenitor's corpses floating in the sea of nothingness, and the millions of stars and planets dimmed down, all vanished into nothingness. The reality, stark and unwavering, rose up to greet him. His eyes were finally opened to the sight of a bleak farming field under a crimson sky. A recognizable environment from thousands of years ago, as he could never forget the day of his triumph over Felix and ascension to godhood. And there, standing before him, was Felix. Unharmed. Unscathed. Not a single scratch marred his visage. When he turned around and saw his three subordinates giving Felix murderous glares like the first time they had met, he couldn't help but open his mouth, but no words came out. He merely turned to stare back at Felix and shared a moment of silence, seemingly trying his best to make sense of this impossible scene. The triumph in his heart turned to ashes, replaced by a sudden, all-consuming realization. It was all a dream, a fantasy. He murmured under his breath, making Lakaka and the two dragons' heads give him weird looks. My lord. Lucifer ignored their calls as his mind was consumed with a single thought. He had been dreaming a bitter fantasy, and now he was awake. How? Lucifer asked against his own will. His question targeted Felix as he knew it was his own doing. Just like in your fantasy, you refused to answer my questions. So, there is no point in sharing my answers with you. Felix replied calmly. Before Lucifer or his baffled subordinate could react to his statement, Felix turned around and walked away. Where the f***ck you think you are going? When Lakaka realized that his lord was out of it, he took it upon himself to stop Felix from escaping. He pointed his antennas in his direction and attempted to cast a spatial freezing ability to keep Felix in place. I have gotten all I need from you. Felix didn't even bother to turn around, he merely murmured with a low voice, but it was carrying a sense of undeniable authority. Totality collapse. The atmosphere around him thickened, a tangible weight pressing down upon the entire realm. His feet dug into the cracked ground beneath him as the essence of his being started to resonate with the very fabric of existence. Then, he lifted his hands, palms upturned towards the heavens and the hells, and the resonance amplified. Rumble. Rumble. Reality stuttered, shivering under the weight of his power. The ground began to crack open, vast chasms spreading out from beneath his feet. Overhead, the sky roared in agony, seeming to tear apart at its very seams. A cataclysmic symphony of destruction resonated, its melody heralding the end of everything. Reality itself trembled as gravity, time, and space were drawn into the maelstrom of Felix's power. Lucifer and his subordinates could only watch in horrified awe as their existence started to crumble. Stones and debris started lifting off the ground, losing their gravity and floating toward the epicenter of the collapse. Time distorted, stretching, and compressing in wild fluctuations. Space itself seemed to warp and twist, a surreal painting by a maddened artist. A final, deafening crack echoed out as the sky shattered entirely, revealing nothing but an all-encompassing, eternal darkness. It was an abyss, an endless void, swallowing everything that once was. The ground, too, finally gave in, crumbling into nothingness and leaving them suspended in the infinite dark. The totality collapse had completed its course. All that remained was Felix, standing amidst the void, the eternal darkness mirroring the determined emptiness in his eyes. Around him, Lucifer and his subordinates were gone, along with their illusions of universal conquest. Their existences were utterly erased from reality. 1344 The absurd and the logical. Felix stood alone in the void of nothingness, surrounded by the remnants of a shattered reality. Construction cube. He brought forth the mastered blue. Construction cube. The cube hovered above his palm, pulsating with an energy that was capable of reassembling the fabric of existence. Expand. He commanded, his voice going silent in the void. The cube responded, brightening and emitting waves of energy that rippled out into the eternal darkness while getting bigger. The energy pulsed rhythmically, like the beating of a cosmic heart, each pulse growing stronger and more potent. First, it started with the ground. From nothingness, the energy began to weave strands of existence, drawing on the memory of what was. Chunks of earth and stone materialized, gradually filling the void. Grass sprouted, trees sprouted up, each growing rapidly as if time itself was compensating for its absence. The sky followed suit, the eternal darkness giving way to a brilliant canvas of blue. Clouds took form, painting fluffy white streaks across the sky, and the sun, a glowing sphere of warmth, punctuated the heavens. Finally, the cube pulsated one last time, as it reconstructed the intricacies of existence that everyone took for granted. The flow of time resumed its steady rhythm, gravity reasserted its invisible pull, and space wrapped itself around everything, restoring everything that had been annihilated. Even Lakaka and the two dragons' corpses were created on the ground without an ounce of life in their soulless eyes. Felix lowered his hand, the cube going dormant once more. He stood amidst the restored environment, his eyes reflecting the returned beauty of the world around him. The once crumbling reality was now vibrant and full of life, a testament to the power of creation after destruction. Felix had restored everything but Lucifer, even though he knew that souls could never reconstructed with his abilities. Knowing that bastard possessed uncanny immortality, he didn't want to risk restoring his corpse just for him to return to life. Do you think he has died for real? Asna inquired. The only way to be sure is to visit the darkness well and check there. Felix said with a solemn tone. Felix was told that totality collapse was more than capable of erasing Lucifer from reality. But, after watching and hearing everything that happened in his fantasy, he wasn't so sure anymore. Felix had heard and seen everything inside Lucifer's fantasy even when it seemed like thousands of years had gone by. That's because the conception of time was screwed up immensely in his fantasy and Lucifer had no idea about it. The ability used to tool Lucifer wasn't illusion domain as Felix hadn't reached 99% yet in his integration. It was an active ability called fantasy manifestation, and he had unlocked it at 30%. It caused the target to have his most desired fantasy come to life by filling in the details himself and how he perceived it would end. The illusion could be interrupted only when the details were questioned by the user, just like what happened to Lucifer. Felix had cast this ability before Lucifer and his subordinates got close to him. When they stepped into its invisible range, Felix targeted only Lucifer. The reason Felix managed to sell it at the start was because he got himself inside the fantasy and played along with Lucifer until the moment he used his own evil energy to cripple him. Felix ditched the fantasy and let it play out as Lucifer anticipated. This was the reason Felix's consciousness space was empty and the takeover of his soul hadn't involved Isna in the slightest. How could Lucifer fill in the details of something he had no idea about? The ascension, demon god, mother, and the overbearing strength he showed against the primogenitors. Thor shook his head. It's hard to figure out what was real and what was made up by his own beliefs. At the end of the day, a fantasy was nothing but a world of imagination and wish fulfillment. Visit novel bin. CM for updates. If Lucifer was acting on wish fulfillment, then many scenes could be questioned. Since he went to request help from his mother to overthrow the Unigens, it means that his beliefs weren't completely irrational. Otherwise, he would have already made up something and destroyed them as well. Lady Sphinx said. That's true. Felix knitted his eyebrows. For him to seek his mother's help while inside his own fantasy means that he sees her as above him even when he had already conquered the universe and killed all the primogenitors that stood in front of him. In this universe, only Unigens and those beings were known to be above primogenitors. I guess she really has woken up. Hormungandr said with a serious tone. Just like the discussion had summoned him, Lord Kaos appeared on his chair at the meeting table and uttered expressionlessly, the paragon of sins. Everyone nodded with heavy looks. None of them were pleased by the news in the slightest, since the paragon always made a mess in the universe. The current demonic plague was enough proof of her sinister nature. If she is involved in this, then don't be foolish to believe that it's over. Lord Kaos remarked calmly. The fact that Lucifer calls her his mother implies that she has created him, which makes it even harder to believe that he has been gone for good. Asna added. Well, his soul has been erased from existence, and unless she can give birth to another demon similar to Lucifer, then I don't see him reviving again. Elder Kraken interjected. As a soul expert, he was certain that it would be impossible for Lucifer to be revived with his memories and such intact after being hit by totality collapse. Soul erasure was nothing like normal death as it implied complete removal from the universe in all of its dimensions. Even primogenitors would have no way of ever coming back if their souls were gone. If he can't be revived, then I have a feeling she will create another one to finish her peculiar mission. Thor rubbed his chin as he recalled the scenes from Lucifer's fantasy. I am honestly confused about the whole matter. Asna uttered with a puzzled tone, it's clear as day from the fantasy that Lucifer is under the assumption that he could steal Felix's body and ascend to a demon god. The paragon of sins is the one putting him under such an insane assumption. So, is the ascension a real thing or not? I am finding it hard to believe that the paragon of sins put Lucifer into this as a prank, but at the same time, I find it absolutely absurd. From what they had witnessed, the ascension seemed like it was destined to happen as the moment Lucifer took over Felix's body, he gained insane strength enhancement in addition to a new makeover. It was like they were missing soulmates and when he took over, he became whole again. I don't know if the ascension is a real thing or not, but him defeating Felix in the consciousness space was logical. Lady Sphinx shared her observation, he believed that Felix's soul was normal and if he defeats Felix, he could kill his consciousness and own both his soul and body. It's quite possible since it will be the same as the demonization process, only this time, instead of merging evil energy with one's soul, it will be Lucifer. He did say that he is the evil energy. Thor nodded, I can totally see it happening now. Felix and others understood Lady Sphinx's explanation as it made the most sense. Asna believed that the whole situation was absurd since she understood that souls need to be compatible to either merge or take over the other and control the body without any problems. She had personal experience with this as she spent millions of years trying to find a soul compatible with her, which was a miracle on its own as it almost never happens. But this clearly didn't apply to Lucifer due to the unique invasive nature of evil energy. When people get demonized, they end up having evil energy merged with their souls without an issue, providing them with immortality and other goodies for a price. It could be considered a parasite that needed a host to continue existing. But, if Lucifer was the consciousness of evil energy, then he would be able to steal anyone's body and control them. This also explains why Lucifer's personally demonized subordinates keep their memories and their original powers while being brainwashed by him. Felix stressed, he must be leaving his own personal evil power source inside their soul, making it possible to contain the nasty side effects and for them to never betray him since he could literally control them like his puppets if he wanted. Seems logical. The tenants agreed with Felix's assumption as it checked over the boxes of their theory. If he knew about Asna's existence, he would not have dared to go for it as it would be impossible to own the entire soul without dealing with her. Thor said. This means that the Paragon of Sins also has no clue about my existence since she will know that her mission was bound to fail, Asna remarked. Just as the tenants were about to agree with her, Lord Koas disclosed emotionlessly, I can't speak for anything else, but the Paragon of Sins never does anything meaningless. Whether she knew or not, there must be another end goal here that we aren't seeing. Lady Sphinx and the others understood that Lord Koas knew the most about the Paragon of Sins, and if he said this about her, then they could only trust his judgment. For now, I'll focus on freeing my people from this demonic plague. Felix uttered with a stern tone, whether she sends Lucifer or a new demon with the same strength as him, this time, I will make sure to open his brain and find out the entire truth. 1345 Sharing the news. Felix walked to the Lakaka and the dragon's corpses. Then, he beamed them in his spatial card. He planned on taking them to Olivia to reverse the demonization process as their bodies still remained in their demonic form even after they were killed. It was normal since the evil energy attached to their physical bodies was also restored. Though, it would be much easier to reverse the process for them due to their souls being gone. Visit novelbin.cm for updates. Felix wanted to do this for two reasons. Give Lakaka's wife his corpse as a closure and take away the royal gemstones from the two dragon clan heads before handing out their corpses to their respective families. You think they will be pleased to know that you are the killer? Asna commentated. I don't care. Felix replied, I am doing the right thing as the Grand Supreme, whether they accept it or take it negatively, that's up to them. While Felix had no ulterior motives for this, he would rather have them take it in a positive manner and support his back, finally burying the hatchet between them. If not, it wouldn't matter much as with his current strength, no one in the alliance could stand against him anymore. It was like a primogenitor becoming the alliance's leader, everyone would bow their heads respectfully as they knew that a single glance from him was capable of killing them. Condense, give me information for the other princes' locations. Felix requested as he teleported inside the Eternal Nautilus cockpit, scaring the temporarily hired crewmates. Felix didn't find much trouble getting them when he had saved more than tens of millions of refugees of all occupations and fields. The only reason everything was going smoothly in the spaceship was due to the people volunteering their help in all departments. Grand Supreme. After a respectful greeting from his crewmates, Felix sat in the captain's cockpit and handed them new coordinates. Take us here after the evacuation process ends. Felix ordered. He had just received the location from Candace, and she told him that it was the latest known position of Prince Satan as he had taken an entire solar system inside the Ors galaxy as his newly arising kingdom. In the past months, Felix ignored the princes and focused on saving as many people as possible while heading back to his galaxy. In his eyes, if Lucifer made a move on his bait, then it would be for the best, but if he ignored him, he wouldn't be losing anything. But now that he had taken care of Lucifer, it was time to get rid of the remaining snakeheads to leave the demons without leaders. Demons without leaders have absolutely no idea what to do besides chasing after purities. Log in. As the Grand Supreme, Felix had to update the rest of the leaders about the situation to switch the entire flow of the war from defense to offense. After the meeting was set up and most inner circle leaders had attended it, Felix skipped the bullsh *T and announced with an emotionless tone, I have killed Lucifer using a destruction ability capable of erasing souls. I don't know if he will be revived or not, but I am certain he won't be bothering with leading the demonic invasion anymore. The inner circle leaders sat frozen in the assembly hall, eyes wide in disbelief and shock. The news of Felix's audacious act hit them like a bolt of lightning out of a clear sky. He had slain Lucifer, the menacing force that had overshadowed their lives for more than 6 decades. A stunned silence filled the room as they wrestled with the enormity of the revelation. The power dynamics they had accepted as unchangeable were disrupted, leaving them grappling with profound shock. Seeing their reaction, Felix waved his hand and showed them the last moment of Lucifer and his subordinates before getting devoured by totality collapse. Queen Alfredo was the first to break the silence. Felix, you have confronted a terror we dared not even dream of facing. And yet, the video you have shown us. It's unbelievable. With a mix of awe and trepidation in his voice, Werewolves King Tresnor echoed his sentiments. We knew you had strength, Felix, but this means you have become a deity. This was one of the reasons every one of them was stunned at the news. They understood that unless Felix became a deity, he could never defeat Lucifer. I did. While they still anticipated it, the revelation hit the inner circle leaders like an unexpected wave after Felix confirmed it. Their faces lit up with an electrifying mix of awe and excitement as Felix declared his transformation into a deity. Yet, beneath the surface, a bitter undertow ran strong. Felix, a mere human, had ascended beyond their reach, touching the divine. Each leader couldn't help but feel a twinge of envy, a stab of melancholy. They celebrated for him but also mourned for themselves. A human had become a deity, crossing a boundary they had once deemed impassable, and in their hearts, they understood that the divide between them had deepened. They smiled and cheered for Felix as they knew that his ascension implied the ascension of the Alliance, but in the solitude of their minds, a quiet sadness seeped in, tainted by a fit of jealousy they could not express. All of them made sure to keep those emotions buried in their hearts. The ramifications of this are huge, the Spider-Kin's Princess Meralia uttered with an upbeat tone, your power can change the entire tide of this war. The tide has already changed with Lucifer's death. Queen Alfreda addressed, we have to make a universal-wide announcement to include everyone on the news. Agreed. Everyone approved the decision even when it seemed dangerous to alert the demons of their king's death. It was understandable. The SG Lions had their asses kicked for the past 6 decades and everyone's morals were at a new time low. They needed a win desperately to lift them up and there was nothing better than an announcement of the worst demon getting slain by their own Grand Supreme. Do as you see fit. Felix approved, I will be handling the remaining princes in the meantime. Felix took his leave after that statement, he didn't even give time for Lakaka's wife to speak about her husband as she was still dazed by the sight of seeing him getting erased from existence in the video. Alas, even if she woke up from her daze in time, she had nothing to say against Felix. He had killed Lucifer and those 3 were mere unavoidable collateral damage. If she dared to accuse him of anything, the other leaders would make sure to put her down without needing Felix to open his mouth. Queen, please contact Olivia, Noah, Selfie, and Bodadai, and put them in one video call Felix requested. After a few beeping noises, the calls were picked up one by one until all of them were on one giant holographic screen. There were no surprised pleasantries or such as Felix had already contacted them the moment he departed from the Elemental's galaxy. Though, they had no clue about him becoming a deity or replacing his bloodline yet again. Good work on Lucifer. Unexpectedly, Noah was the first to speak as he gave a compliment with the most serious expression ever. Clearly, he had heard the news from his master Fenrir. I just gave him the meeting that he always wanted. Felix joked as he smiled faintly, dropping his guard in front of his friends. You actually killed him. Olivia reacted excitedly as always, does this means we won't need to worry about new demons? As long as we reverse every single demon and completely annihilate evil energy from our territories, there will always be new demons being born. Felix said, though, the good news is that it won't be as aggressive and rapid as before. Lucifer was doing more damage than all demons combined since he was capable of demonizing entire planets in less than a day. The worst part, he could open portals inside planets with the help of Lakaka or other space worms and avoid all defensive measures. If it wasn't for him, this demonic plague would have ended much differently as the Scallions' forces weren't to be underestimated. With him gone and Felix going after the princes, there would be really fewer and fewer demons being born. Felix, does this means you have become an origin bloodliner? Selfie questioned in confusion, why does your appearance look the same? Are you contacting us from the UVR and keeping the previous one? This question made everyone curious as they knew that Felix's origin realm was going to be widely different from any other human. After all, he used only primogenitor's bloodlines in his path. But Felix threw a curveball at them. I haven't reached the origin realm yet. Hey. Before they could react to his statement, Felix cancelled his shape-shifting and showed them his new appearance with somewhat of an embarrassed look. I have replaced my bloodline for the last time. What? They. Chapter 1346 The Awakening of the Paragon of Sins. While Felix was being grilled for answers about the method used to push past the 6th bloodline by his friends, an event of cosmic magnitude was transpiring in the depth of the void realm on the other side of the universe. Here where reality bowed to mystery and the fabric of existence danced to unseen forces, the Paragon of Sins was beginning to awaken. Her eyelids, vast expanses of cosmic canvas, began to flutter. The texture of her skin, a deep purplish hue, seemed to ripple and shimmer, as though filled with entire galaxies. Nebulae, supernovae, and celestial bodies all were vividly represented in the tapestry of her flesh, each contributing to a mesmerizing spectacle of cosmic grandeur. Even the void, in her presence, seemed to concede its starkness, as if the constellations within her were radiating an ethereal glow that defied the inherent desolation. Then, her eyes began to open, a moment that turned the event horizon into the most splendid stage. As her eyes fully opened, light erupted from them, a brilliance that spread outwards like the birth of a supernova, irradiating the void realm with vibrant, life-affirming radiance. The magnitude of her size was staggering, comparable to a galaxy's quasar. There she floated, a colossal celestial deity, her vast silhouette dominating the void. Here in the unforgiving void, the Paragon of Sins awoke, a beautiful gargantuan woman wrapped in the skin of the cosmos, and with eyes that ignited existence itself, and she didn't seem pleased one bit. He somehow failed to achieve both plans. Now that he has given his end goal and the method, the kid will make it extremely difficult for him to give it another go. The Paragon's thoughts seemed to rumble in the silent expanse of the void realm. Unbeknownst to Felix and the tenants, she did know about Asna's existence and a lot more about Felix than they could imagine. She didn't care about whether Lucifer failed or succeeded in the merge, it would still serve as part of her plan if the merge went through. But, she didn't expect that Lucifer would get blindsided this badly and end up exposing his cards inside an illusion, making Felix end him without commencing the merge. This is quite a setback, but nothing that can't be handled. The Paragon murmured, Doing this will force me to go into slumber for a while again, but it's worth it to attain my eternal freedom. A subtle vibration of energy began to ripple around her, emanating from a locus of malicious energy that clung to her gigantic form. The paragon closed her pink, luminous eyes, her divine consciousness rippling in tandem with the void. In the sprawling expanse of her mind, she reached in, carving out a fragment of her own consciousness. With an ethereal grace, she reached out and took the sliver of consciousness. The piece was trembling, vibrant with sentience and potential, a sharp contrast to the corruption that awaited it. Then, with an act of will that echoed across the cosmos, she pushed it into the crimson energy mass. The moment the fragment of consciousness touched the energy, a brilliant explosion erupted, cascading waves of pink and purple light across the void. As the light subsided, a flux of memories began to flow into the nascent consciousness. These were not ordinary memories, they were the collective recollections of Lucifer from the moment he was born. As the tide of Lucifer's memories washed over the newborn consciousness, a miraculous transformation began to occur. The energy mass began to change, to morph, until it resembled Lucifer in form. This was Lucifer reborn, sculpted from the raw energy of the paragon's sin, endowed with a new consciousness, and nourished on the memories of his previous existence. Despite the same memories, this Lucifer was different, a reincarnation infused with a part of the paragon herself, unlike his past self. He was born of her, and through her, given a second chance to redeem himself. Mother, I have failed you and I am undeserving of your grace. The first thing that Lucifer did was kneel down with a distraught expression, knowing exactly how big he screwed up against Felix. While his loss had affected him badly, disappointing his celestial mother was even worse. I don't have time for excuses. The paragon spoke with a faint voice like a candle on the verge of being extinguished. Listen, I have bestowed upon you a tiny fragment of my consciousness and it might not be able to overpower his spiritual pressure, but it will help you resist any similar mental attacks. So, do not fall for the same trick twice and bring me desirable results. I don't care if you had to use outside help or sacrifice the entire demon race, just make the merge happen. As she had reached the last sentence, the paragon's breathtaking eyes seemed to have closed on their own while the shimmering brilliant light of her celestial body dimmed down akin to a dying star. In a few moments at best, the void realm had returned to its peaceful state and Lucifer was left all alone with a solemn expression. He knew that his mother was punished for reviving him as the same had happened during his birth. While the other princes and everyone else were under the impression that the 7 princes were the only demons born out of evil energy, Lucifer was the only one knowing the whole truth. He was in fact, the consciousness of the evil energy being born after getting fed neutral energy through the paragon of sins for a very, very long time. Lucifer wasn't calling the paragon of sins his mother for no reason, he knew that she made his birth possible and without her, there wouldn't be even something called evil energy in the first place. As an outsider elemental, he didn't have a god figure like 4 Mother Siamese who could revive him infinitely in case his consciousness got obliterated without consequences. Lucifer's consciousness was more than obliterated as it was erased from reality through totality collapse, which meant the paragon of sins had to go the extra mile to bring him back with his memories still intact. It was more than possible with the greed sin laws that were capable of fulfilling any wish as long as the price was right. In this case, it had cost her plenty of years of deep slumber. Meanwhile, the other 6 princes were actually born because of Lucifer to help him spread out his roots on a wider scale without him needing to do anything. Since he didn't give a crap about authority over demons or such as they were a mere tool to fulfill his destiny, he left them to believe that they were his equals. This was the source of the misinformation. I can't disappoint Mother again as she won't be merciful the next time. Lucifer narrowed his eyes coldly, that bastard must believe that I have been slain, and the only way to keep this assumption alive is to leave my race to die out and for his alliance to win the war. Lucifer was planning to change his entire approach to the matter. At first, he was confident that he was unkillable and that Felix's end would be the same no matter what he tried. But now? It was time to be smart about it and he had no problem with acting like a snake, waiting for the perfect opportunity to pounce, even if it meant giving up on the demonic invasion and his entire race. Visit novelbin.cm for updates. I have one more chance and I won't blow it again. Lucifer uttered with a suppressed tone as he exited the void realm from the darkness well and went into hiding. A couple of days later, the SG Lions and the demons across the entire universe were rocked with the news of the Grand Supreme slaying the Demon King. The impact of this revelation was as potent as an earthquake. Within the ranks of the SG Lions, a seismic shift took place. Soldiers who had once been desolate, weighed down by the rigors of war, now stood tall, their spirits soaring. They began to fight with renewed vigor, the morale boost fueling their courage, and their tenacity amplified. On the other side, the demon hordes were dealt a staggering blow. The news of Lucifer's downfall spread like wildfire, seeping into their ranks and sapping the morale of their forces. Their roars of defiance became subdued, and their once fiery eyes now flickered with uncertainty. The icon of their rebellion, their prince, was gone, and with his absence, their resolve was shattered. The fact that days went by and Lucifer hadn't come out to disapprove of the news made it even harder to stomach. The 6 princes were affected the worst as they knew that their entire invasion was heavily reliant on Lucifer's overbearing strength. Chapter 1346 The Awakening of the Paragon of Sins. What scared them even more was Lucifer's silence. They could understand him getting defeated by Felix or even killed, but the notion of him not being revived sent shivers down their spine. Lucifer had fought the ice primogenitors tens of times and emerged unaffected. Prince Beelzebub said nervously, he can't have been killed for real? Right? He just can't. Whether he died for real or not, we are next on the menu for their leader. Prince Satan uttered with a solemn tone, we have to go into hiding to protect ourselves. But the war. Screw the war, I refuse to die here. He is right, this is not the time to worry about our territories. Prince Abaddon said with a solemn tone, for Lucifer to get defeated, he must have become a deity and you know damn well, he can kill us with a mere glance. With Lucifer being super active in this war and exposing his real strength, the 6 princes dropped any thoughts they had about the throne. If they knew about it beforehand, they wouldn't have even considered it. I am ditching my kingdom and going into hiding. Prince Satan advised, I suggest you do the same if you value your life. While this decision had upset them immensely, they understood that it was the only way to save themselves. On the other side of the universe, 3 more beings were hit the hardest by the news of Lucifer's death under Felix's hands, the Darkins. It finally happened, that annoying brat has reached our level. Saurus didn't know whether to be depressed or angry with how things turned out. If someone came to him before he met Felix and he told him that in 8 decades, this worthless human kid would become a deity, he would have laughed him out of the room. But, here he was, hiding in a corner of the universe with his partners because of the same kid, hoping for him to get killed by any means possible. I really thought that demon has it in the bag, but I have been disappointed too many times. I am starting to feel that unless we killed him with our 2 hands, it won't happen. Wendigo sighed. Then, let's start preparing ourselves. Mananangel said calmly, now, that he has reached a deity level, he is bound to target us of his own volition with his masters. It will be 5 against 3. Saurus frowned, but, he is still a mere newbie and he needs millions of years to reach our elemental range if not more. I am done underestimating that brat. Wendigo shook his head, his elemental range might be trash compared to us, but he has multiple ultimate abilities in his arsenal, and that translates to billions of years of effort stacked on each other. His partners agreed with his statement as much as they disliked the sound of it. There were plenty of things that separated a primogenitor from any deity. Besides the reaction speed and spiritual pressure, it was the immense time they took to master their elements. Ultimate abilities were considered the pinnacle of their effort, struggle, and hard work. Felix possessed 5 ultimate abilities if the void domain was considered. This implied that only elemental range, battle experience, and immortality were the difference between him and a primogenitor. 5 ultimate abilities were potent enough to make those differences obsolete if they underestimated him and ended up getting hit by them. What's worse, he has the concept destruction ability, which helps him avoid any damages caused by our elements if he marked them. Wendigo frowned. This means the only way to kill him is to assassinate him from a long distance, giving him no time to react. That's why I said we need to prepare. Mananangel stated, we have to make our assassination plan type-proof, unlike the last time. Outnumbered or not, the Darkins had no intentions of hiding in the corner like rats if Felix dared to step foot in the 7 demon realms. One could only wonder what would their reaction be if they found out that Hormungandr and Thor weren't even in the picture. 5 days later. The blood-red sun began to rise as Felix approached the ominous perimeters of Prince Satan's demonic city. A city that had once throbbed with the energy of malevolent power and diabolical life now lay vacant and eerily silent. As expected, the announcements have scared them off. Felix uttered nonchalantly as he ventured through the ghostly streets. Using his evil vision, he could see that not a single demon was left in the city, which meant either Prince Satan had taken them with him or sent them away. Well, they can hide for as long as they want. But, they can't continue demonizing more of our people without exposing themselves. Candace sneered. The others must have abandoned their kingdoms as well. Felix ordered, let's get out of here. Although the planet was packed with demons, Felix had no intentions of killing them, it was best to leave them be until Olivia helped them reverse the demonization process. Queen, call Olivia. Olivia is unavailable at the moment. Queen AI replied, making Felix understand that she must be busy with another demon batch. So, he called Noah and asked for updates. Visit novelbin.cm for updates. The demonization reversal process is going smoothly. Noah shared expressionlessly. How much percentage do you reckon you have done? Based on the latest intel, we must have reversed the process for at least 3% across the galaxy. That's it. Felix frowned, it's way too slow. It can't be helped, Olivia is all alone in this and we can do nothing but increase the number of demons. Noah responded. I know, but it's still too slow. I have to figure out an alternative if we want to reverse the process for most people before they lose their rationality. Felix said with a serious tone. Felix knew that it would take Olivia centuries if not more to reverse the process for the majority of the demons in the universe. By then, most demons would have become animalistic and even if the process was reversed, they would become vegetables. Felix had no intentions of having hundreds of billions of demonized citizens turn into vegetables on his watch. After he hung up on Noah, Felix sat down with his thoughts and began brainstorming a new plan to accelerate the reversal process. With Olivia already coming up with a method, he didn't stride away from it. Olivia is using Lady Yggdrasil's ultimate ability in a perfect balance of sucking evil energy and pushing pure energy to reverse the demonization. Felix pondered, while she needs to supervise each demonization process, the same doesn't apply to Lady Yggdrasil. Are you thinking of requesting Lady Yggdrasil to help out? Asna asked. I don't see another way. Felix nodded, unlike Olivia, Lady Yggdrasil could create hundreds to even thousands of seeds of life and control them from a distance through a consciousness link. This means it's possible to accelerate the process by hundreds of times if she hands out the seeds of life to us and we plant them on the most affected planets. Olivia already did the dirty irritating work of finding the perfect balance, if she shared it with Lady Yggdrasil, she wouldn't really be putting much effort into the demonization reversal. It's feasible, but will Lady Yggdrasil help out? Asna shook her head, she might be kinder than most primogenitors, but she wasn't known for being charitable either. Ever since the war started, the primogenitors merely sat in the shadows and spectated the whole thing without lifting a finger. Even when some races were on the verge of extinction, they still kept to themselves. It was expected, the primogenitors take the pact of staying out of mortal matters quite seriously. Since even Fenrir wasn't capable of handling Lucifer, none of them felt the need to get themselves involved in this, at least, not until the universe itself gets endangered. Lady Yggdrasil had also kept to herself and didn't bother helping out the demonized elves on the 8th and 9th Elvish realms since they were situated the furthest from her body. The remaining realms were protected by her immense life force that transformed into pure energy the moment it sensed evil energy in the vicinity, but the remaining 2 weren't so lucky. Selphie was situated in that 9th realm for the past 6 decades and tried her best to lead the resistance to save everyone. The 8th realm didn't have it as bad as the 9th realm since the latter was packed with half-blood/mixed breed elves and other races, making them not prioritized by the elvish armies. If Lady Yggdrasil even ignored the woes of citizens in her own body, one could only imagine her response when Felix requests thousands of constant seeds of life. The only way to move a primogenitor is through a favor or a trade. Felix smirked faintly, I just need to make an offer that she finds irresistible, and I think I know what it is. Some time later. Felix was back in Lady Yggdrasil's personal garden inside the UVR. It was a serene oasis, shimmering under a celestial light, a living testament to her divine connection with nature. Enigmatic, ancient trees towered above, their branches whispering age-old secrets. Vibrant, mystic flowers bloomed in abundance, their enchanting scents permeating the air with a celestial sweetness. At the garden's heart stood the grand Yggdrasil tree, the lifeblood of her domain, its mighty branches reaching out as if to embrace the cosmos. Each element of the garden seemed infused with Lady Yggdrasil's energy, creating a sacred sanctuary that was as timeless as she. Felix walked with Selphie at his side toward the center tree. She was the one setting up the meeting with her mother and she wanted to accompany him. Felix found no reason to reject her since she could help him sway Lady Yggdrasil's decision in their favor. When they arrived, they noticed that Lady Yggdrasil was sitting under the tree with a cup of tea in one hand and a book in the other. The same picture that was stuck in Felix's mind after his last meeting with her. Elder, I am here to ask for a favor. Felix went straight to the subject as he requested with his head lowered respectfully. Favor? I hope you don't think that you can ask for free favors from primogenitors now that you have become a deity. Lady Yggdrasil chuckled softly. I wouldn't dare. Felix shook his head. He understood that asking for favors from primogenitors was a serious matter and all of them avoid having to resort to it at all costs since returning those favors was a must. In other words, if Felix asked for a favor, then he should expect that Lady Yggdrasil would ask him for one later on and regardless of its content, he had to try his best to make it happen. No one would want to have such a sword hanging down their necks. Speak up, then. Lady Yggdrasil smiled, if it's a small one, I can do it free of charge for taking care of my daughter in the Elementals galaxy. First, she took care of me and I would forever be indebted to her. Felix smiled as he gazed at Selphie's shy demeanor. Then, he added with a serious tone, secondly, it's not a small one. I am hoping that you can lend us your help to accelerate the demonization process and save as many citizens as possible. I see, that's indeed not a small favor. Lady Yggdrasil closed her book gently and said, you know that you are asking me to break the pact and interfere in matters unrelated to primogenitors. But Mom. Selphie wanted to help. I am not finished. Lady Yggdrasil raised her finger and continued on calmly, you are the ones who decided to invade the demons' territories for the sake of riches and territories. If you were just content with your situation, none of this would have happened. Neither Felix nor Selphie was able to retort. While Selphie had nothing to do with the decision, Felix was the one announcing that his first order as the Grand Supreme was to conquer the other side. No one pushed him to do it. Now that the situation had developed to this state, it wasn't honest of him to come seeking help from primogenitors to fix his own mess. If that deity demon was still running rampant and threatening our stability, we would have stopped him without any of you finding out. Lady Yggdrasil said, you have taken care of him, and applaud you for that. However, the aftermath of the war isn't really our problem to solve. In other words, all the demonized citizens could go to flames and none of them would bat an eye. As primogenitors who lived through multiple eras, tens of billions of deaths were nothing to them as they knew that more would be born in the future. Read latest chapters at n/v/e/lbi.co/m. This massacre would serve as a lesson to the Alliance to never antagonize a race without proper research. I am not trying to avoid responsibility and I know that I have played a big part in how the situation developed, Felix responded with a bitter smile. But, I refuse to leave it to end like this when I know that there is something to be done. So, if a favor won't do, then how about a deal? A deal. Lady Yggdrasil was intrigued. Is it coming from you or your masters? Me and me alone. Felix replied, understanding that she implied his inability to offer anything that could be considered worth having her break the pact and get her hands dirty. My interest is piqued. Lady Yggdrasil smiled. You really have something to offer. Even Selphie was curious. I do. Felix looked straight into Lady Yggdrasil's eyes and proposed, I am willing to help you with analyzing the runic codex until its completion. Both Lady Yggdrasil and Selphie shared a similar startled expression at his bold statement. Felix had expected such a reaction as he knew that his offer was more than questionable. After all, even after billions of years, Lady Yggdrasil had yet to finish analyzing the entire book. In fact, it was believed that she barely analyzed half of it and the remaining half was still filled with millions of all possible spells using all known elements. Some were even confident that omnipotent spells weren't the end of the rope and that there were even more complex spells that could rival primogenitors' ultimate abilities. Such a theory had some legit basis as it was known that runic spells were similar to elemental abilities in all departments but the medium used to achieve them. This implied similar ultimate abilities could be extrapolated from the runic codex or even unknown ones if a worthy person was capable of doing it. But, when even Lady Yggdrasil had failed to create new spells above omnipotent grade, no one thought there could be another one capable of doing it. Even Selphie with her monstrous talent would end up facing a massive wall if she dared to create the impossible. I understand that saying this makes me seem way out of my head. Felix shared with a serious tone, but, I am confident in my ability to help. I will entertain you. Lady Yggdrasil chuckled and asked, how will you help? With those two. Felix pointed at his eyes as he activated his wisdom eyes and turned them completely black. Wisdom eyes? Lady Yggdrasil commentated. Yes. Felix spoke with a confident tone, Lord Shiva has helped me master them and I have utilized their best capabilities in my space/time spells. In a short period, I have mastered 4 lesser time spells, and the only reason I didn't commit to all of them is due to having other strengths that needed focus. Also, because I knew that there are barely less than 15 time spells and there is no rush to master them all. How is this any different than what my daughter is doing? Lady Yggdrasil shook her head, wisdom eyes are amazing all right, but they did nothing but bridge the gap between you and Selphie. If your comprehension was already on Selphie's level, then having those wisdom eyes will be the same as giving wings to a tiger. Then, I would have actually considered the proposal and helped you with this eternal goal of mine, alas. Lady Yggdrasil wasn't trying to put Felix down and he knew it. Wisdom's eyes were an amplifying tool. In Felix's case, his comprehension of the runes was absolutely dog-sh*t in the first place. With their assistance, he managed to get around the complexity of lesser time spells by simplifying them for him. However, if he tried to use them for greater or even omnipotent time spells, even the simplified version would be too complex for him and it would take him a long while to master them. On the other hand, if Selphie possessed wisdom eyes, omnipotent spells would seem like lesser spells. A genius being given a supercomputer at his disposal wouldn't provide the same results as being in the hands of someone else. Felix had no problems admitting to this, and his original plan was leading to this point. Then, how about this? Felix smiled. I will offer Selphie my help to obtain the wisdom eyes and she can focus on analyzing the runic codex. Hey. Selphie was shocked. Now, it's getting interesting. Lady Yggdrasil narrowed her eyes at him. How are you planning to do that? I can't help her possess the real thing, but I can make sure to bend reality to make it seem like she possesses it with the help of illusion domain. Felix smirked faintly. The moment Lady Yggdrasil heard this, she couldn't help but show a content smile. I am familiar with the illusion domain's true potency, and if you really unlock the ability, then I can see this deal going through. Visit novelbin.cm for updates. I have yet to unlock it, but I am 100% certain I will do so when I reach 99% in my integration. Felix assured. Although Felix knew that Lord Loki might possess an ultimate ability plus an elemental domain, he was certain that the domain would be picked. It was because the last unlocked ability always targeted the most remarkable ability of the bloodline owner, and ultimate abilities had nothing against elemental domains in this department. Lady Yggdrasil took a few moments to look at Selphie and asked, are you willing to take this mission? Creating new spells from the runic codex is already immensely difficult, attempting to analyze it to completion is no easy task and it might take you a lifetime and still not achieve it. Lady Yggdrasil wanted Selphie to learn and master time spells and become the greatest spellcaster of all time, but she never thought of placing her dream and goal on her shoulder. As long as you help me, mother, I believe we can do it together. Selphie smiled, her eyes glowing with a new purpose. I will be there every step of the way. Lady Yggdrasil smiled back. Then, I guess we have a deal. Felix inquired. Lady Yggdrasil nodded before asking, I believe you want to plant multiple seeds of life across the corrupted planets and make me reverse the demonization, correct? It wasn't hard for Lady Yggdrasil to figure out Felix's plan the moment he shared his request. Exactly. Felix didn't beat around the bush. There are more than 700 billion demonized citizens across the entire Alliance's territory. This is the known number and it might even have crossed 1 trillion if we counted the isolated civilizations. I hope you can share with us as many seeds of life as you can manage and help us fight through this. Alright then. Lady Yggdrasil agreed without any more questions. Much appreciated. Felix bowed deeply in gratitude. Although he had traded his time for this, in reality, he would have helped Selphie in analyzing the runic codex anyways since it was beneficial to him as well. After all, the more time spells she created, the more he would add to his arsenal. He had no time to invest in analyzing the runic codex when he had many other problems to cover. So, he wasn't really losing anything from this deal. After the deal was concluded, Felix shared the news with the inner circle leaders and worked with them to create a new powerful division responsible for the delivery of the seeds of life and overseeing the process. Obviously, Felix had gotten credit for this from the leaders as everyone was more than pleased to learn that he had convinced a primogenitor to involve themselves in their mess. But Felix didn't give a **t about such a needless ego boost and made everyone work the extra mile to conclude the creation of this division and start with the universal-wide demonization reversal. With him putting his foot on this, no one tried to play politics and attempt to steal as many seeds of life as possible to prioritize their own territories. Felix made it clear that the oldest invaded planets would be prioritized since the citizens there were on the verge of sucking their planets dry from purities and being left with no rationality intact. With all preparation set and Lady Yggdrasil delivering her promise and handing out hundreds of seeds of life to the responsible division, the project was fully commenced in less than a week. In the throbbing heart of the vast, star-speckled cosmos, the Scollion's fleet surged forward like a surge of silvery fish cutting through the ocean's abyss. Each ship was a glistening titan, its streamlined hull gleaming in the harsh, white starlight, wings outspread in a show of might and solidarity. Each world they approached was a harrowing sight to behold. Once vibrant and teeming with life, the planets now writhed under an eerie, baleful aura. Their surfaces were twisted and distorted, marred by the unnatural horrors that had turned their own citizens into creatures of unimaginable torment. The faces of once kind neighbors, friends, and family were now marred with demonic snarls, twisted by the raw agony of their transformation. But now there was a beacon of hope. Once the seeds were planted in said planets, under Lady Yggdrasil's remote control, the seeds began to sprout, erupting from the ground like shimmering pillars of verdant green. Slowly but surely, the mighty world trees rose, spreading their enormous canopies across the corrupted landscapes. The sight of their growth was nothing short of a miracle, a testament to life's enduring perseverance against the most horrifying of odds. From each tree, waves of pure, revitalizing energy pulsed, penetrating the bodies of the demonic citizens. The energy did not harm them, rather, it gently and surely started the process of reversal, the trees working in tandem with Lady Yggdrasil to untwist the demonization that had corrupted these beings. As expected, Lady Yggdrasil is so much better at this than Olivia. Felix commentated as he watched the process of hundreds of world trees in his cockpit. Olivia deserved a great amount of credit for figuring out the balance, but when it was given to Lady Yggdrasil, she didn't even need to put the demons into cocoons. To make matters even better, Lady Yggdrasil allowed her trees to grow into an unfathomable size until half it was floating in the exosphere. With roots spreading across the planet's underground world, she sucked the evil energy of it and released it into space while feeding them with much-needed life force to revitalize them. So, she wasn't just reversing the demonization of the citizens, but also returning their homes to them as a bonus, something that even Olivia found hard to achieve. When the news of this had gotten out, it was impossible to keep Lady Yggdrasil's identity hidden any longer as this was obliviously a work of a god. In this universe, there was only one known goddess and it was the goddess of nature. This time, not just the elves who prayed for her, but even other races across the entire universe. The inner circle leaders knew that the primogenitors wanted to keep their existence hidden, so no one came forward and confirmed that this was the doing of Lady Yggdrasil, but at the same time, they didn't deny it. There was simply no other explanation, and the public wasn't stupid to not see through such an obvious lie. And so, under Lady Yggdrasil's careful supervision and the public's morals on the rise, the Skallians' fleets continued their noble mission across their territory, planet by planet, turning the tide against the demonic plague. As they traveled, the once tormented worlds behind them slowly returned to their natural state, their surfaces flourishing with verdant life and their citizens restored, standing as living testimonies to the resilience of life and the indefatigable spirit of the SG Alliance. In less than a year, the entire Skallians' territories were cleared out of more than 90% of demons and the numbers were still on the rise. The smart demons like the princes had already picked whatever spaceship before them and took off towards the other side of the universe, returning to their original homes. They knew that as long as they remained in the Skallians' territory, it would get worse and worse for them. After all, they had no protection from the princes and their demon king was gone for good. The fact that they need purities to survive made them incapable of staying in outer space for too long, which would result in them getting hunted down the moment a piece of information gets released about them. With this max exodus of the demon race back to their territories, the SG Alliance did nothing to stop them and kept on prioritizing their own citizens first. This was under Felix's orders as he understood that those demons might run but they had nowhere to hide. When he was done with healing his home, he would pay them a visit again. This time, he would go there personally and make sure that not a single demon would exist in this universe ever again. Besides a couple of demons on the run and causing trouble and some planets being too ruined to be fixed, it's safe to say that the Alliance is on track to be back to normal again. Asna wondered with a lazy tone as she had her head placed on Felix's lap. What's your next move now? Are you going after the Darkins right away? Not yet. Felix shook his head. They must have heard about me and they are planning to either ambush or assault me the instant I enter the other side. I have to be fully prepared to take at least one of them down in our first contact since if I exposed all of my cards and failed in doing so, it will get much harder to slay them later on. I see, so, who are you planning to target of them? You know the answer. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly as he envisioned the blood primogenitor, Mananangel blowing his home and killing everyone in it. His hatred of Saurus and Wendigo was at its limit, but his heart had a different place for the one who pulled the trigger. Whether Mananangel possessed true immortality or not, Felix was going to show him that his greatest gift would be his downfall before him. It's finally time to hunt down those F***ers and get our revenge. Asna grinned sadistically. It sure is, it sure is. Felix smirked coldly as he caressed her cheek in a gentle manner, completely opposite to his murderous aura. A few months later, Felix could be seen sitting on a small puddle of sweat in a meditation position with Nemo fooling around beside him. 99% at last. He exhaled deeply as he opened his closed eyes and stared at the faraway ceiling of his spaceship. Now, you have finally reached the end of your bloodline path. Asna commentated. I don't know if I am going to miss this or not, but I am somewhat relieved it ended after everything that happened in this wild journey. Felix showed a tiny smile. For everyone else, their bloodline path ended in a couple of years at best due to not having many benefits of waiting things out. Felix took more than 6,000 years to finally hit the limit in his bloodline path, and everyone else must already assume that he had become an origin bloodliner. You can reminisce later, there is someone wanting to meet you. Thor shared with an irritated voice. On my way. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly as he entered the consciousness space, knowing that Lord Loki's wisp had been awakened. It's a pleasure to finally meet my superstar. Lord Loki appeared with a new appearance of a male elderly human with a grey beard and receding hairline, resembling any average geezer. He stretched his arms widely as he had a big grin on his face. He walked towards Felix, seemingly attempting to give him a hug. Alas, Felix's masters got in front of him and gave him a cold stare. You are not welcome here. Although Felix was using his bloodline, neither he nor his masters had any interest in entertaining Lord Loki's shenanigans. His masters knew that he was untrustworthy and would do anything for the sake of his entertainment. The proof was handing Felix's blood to his enemies just to watch them collide. Come on, I thought we buried the hatchet with our deal. Lord Loki acted upset. Whether we buried it or not, that's not for you to decide. Now, please leave while we are still asking nicely. Thor said indifferently. Lord Loki ignored Thor and looked at the other tenants with a pitiful look, seemingly asking for their help. Alas, the closest one to him was Lord Shiva and he didn't even bother to glance in his direction or admit his existence, he merely kept sunbathing peacefully. Fine, I will pay the fees to be admitted to the party. Lord Loki dropped his sulky attitude and offered, if you let me stay, I will help you get better with illusion manipulation. Felix raised an eyebrow in delight for a moment before returning to his stoic expression. What do you think, masters? Can he be trusted? He discussed it with his masters. Trusted? He can't be trusted to watch a rock. Thor sneered, but, his offer does seem too good to pass on. I suggest we agree to his condition. Hormungandr nodded, with the UVR being involved if he wants to cause Felix trouble, he can easily do it any time he wanted whether he is around us or not. At least now, we can watch over him. That's true. Thor agreed. The most important thing was having Lord Loki as Felix's teacher would help him along the way in his illusion mastery. If Felix didn't receive help from the previous owners of the manipulations, he wouldn't have mastered a single advanced ability even in millions of years. It was expected since it would be the same as creating the advanced ability from scratch instead of being led along the way by the creator. We can get more than this. Lady Sphinx said, let me handle this. After hearing this, they remained silent and let Mama Sphinx take care of Lord Loki. Teaching him abilities is a good offer, but it's not enough to join the club. Before Lord Loki could voice his displeasure, Lady Sphinx added, if you want to truly be part of our faction, then you have to help us with the Darkins. This means giving us their locations constantly and their plans through spying on them in the UVR. Felix and the tenants didn't expect Lady Sphinx to be this brutal and asked for Lord Loki to be their spy for the sake of hanging out with them. He clearly was interested in playing cards, chess, and just enjoying his time in the company of his peers. To make him go against the council's pact by spying on actual primogenitors was too much of a risk and they thought that he would reject it immediately. Alas. This was Lord Loki. Consider it done. Lord Loki sold out the Darkins with a wide sleazy smile faster than the tenants could take a breather. Felix and the others didn't know whether to feel appreciative of his honesty or more worried about how easy it was for him to break such a sacred pact and give up on his peers, not giving a **t about his neutrality. I don't know why I expected for you to have a bit of honor in your word. Lady Sphinx sighed exasperatedly. My word goes to the highest bidder, and at this moment, I feel like I get more value out of being part of your faction. Lord Loki replied casually. Value in this context was nothing more than entertainment, which implied that as long as Felix and his people eased his boredom, he would always stand by their side. If not, he had no problems with throwing his toys and picking new ones. That's how Lord Loki operated, and even though the primogenitors already knew about this, it never ceased to amaze them to see him staying true to his nature in the real world. Especially, when he was considered as one of the 5 elemental lords with the highest level of authority in the universe below only the Unigens. If he can throw away the Darkins with a snap of a finger like that after helping them, then he will most definitely do the same to us in the future. Asna said with a tone of discomfort. It's alright, at least we know that it's coming. Felix smirked. I am more comfortable with this than having no clue where and when the hit would come. In Felix's eyes, it was only betrayal if he had no clue about it, if someone was going to betray him and he knew about it, yet, he did nothing to protect himself, it was on him. How about you consummate your entry with some good intel? Lady Sphinx requested. Sure thing. Lord Loki chuckled, his eyes displaying not an ounce of remorse. The Darkins have planned to assassinate your boy from a distance the moment he steps foot in their side of the universe. I guess we were right. Felix narrowed his eyes coldly. He already anticipated as much, but now that it was confirmed, he understood that he needed to prepare as much as possible for the upcoming fight. Give us more details. Thor asked. I don't know more details at the moment. Lord Loki shrugged his shoulders. You know I can't invade their minds without them finding out, and most of their important discussion is held telepathically. While the Darkins had no clue that Lord Loki had joined Felix's side since he didn't expose any relation he had with him in public, this didn't mean that they would be foolish enough to put everything under his eyes. All primogenitors knew that Lord Loki was too much of a weasel to not spy on them to ease his boredom, and they didn't have much issue with this as long as he kept the information to himself. I see, well still, keep your eyes on them in case they shared something critical. Thor requested. Will do, so now, what were you guys playing? A bit eager, Lord Loki asked as he rubbed his hands aching to a scammy merchant while staring at the circular table and the cards on it. Read the latest stories and novel bin.com. Poker, interested. Thor grinned from ear to ear.